Everyone, and welcome to the Multnomah County Board of Commissioners' 8th budget work session. Audience members, I want to start by asking you to please silence your electronic devices. For those presenting today, please turn your mic on when you begin speaking and off when you've completed your remarks. And for all presenters, please state your name for the record before speaking or responding to questions. Before we begin this morning, I just wanted to give a shout out to our elections team for managing another successful election last night. I know they were at the elections division office until after midnight, making sure those ballots got counted. And I know they're back again, finishing up today. So I just want to give them a shout out and how much we appreciate them and what an important part of democracy they are for us. So thank you. All right, so our budget work session number 8 is we're have our health department back. This time we're focusing on behavioral health this morning for our first session, and then our second session today will be the public health officer and public health division. But to begin with, I'll invite Director Banks and our behavioral health folks up. Anthony, Jordan, welcome. And I know we have one person who is under the weather today, Jessica Jacobson, and who will be joining us virtually. So. Good morning.
Right. Good morning, Chair Vega Peterson. Good morning, Commissioner Moyer, Commissioner Singleton, Commissioner Brim Edwards, and Commissioner Jones Dixon. For the record, my name is Rachel Banks. I have the pleasure of being your Health Department Director. I use she, her, and hers. I get to be the MC for this fabulous week of Health Department presentations, where we'll talk some budget, but really what we want to do is tell you about all the amazing things that we get to do. And with me today, I have a fabulous group of folks who I'll let introduce themselves.
Good morning. I'm Anthony Jordan, and I'm joined. I guess we can let Brady introduce himself.
Thank you, Anthony, and good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Brady Estevez. I'm the Finance Manager for Behavioral Health and Corrections Health, and I use he, him, his pronouns.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. I'm Jay Auslander. I use he, him. I am the Interim Deputy Director of Operations for the Behavioral Health Division.
And then Jessica.
Good morning, Commissioners and Chair. I'm Jessica Jacobson. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Interim Deputy Director of Clinical Integrity.
Great, thank you. So I'll just say before I pass it over, it was great to be with you all yesterday. We've incorporated some of the questions into the presentations and know that there will be additional ones that we're working on, or as always, of course, we'll take your questions, comments, and feedbacks, and we'll be back again tomorrow. And then we have some other time scheduled as well. But I just want to, again, say thank you to everyone who made this presentation together, the budget, this phenomenal team for the work that they do. And I'm happy to pass it over to Anthony.
Hey, good morning. I want to say as newbies, give us a little grace, but I really appreciate all the help and support that we've been given to get to this presentation. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We would definitely do that as well. Next slide. Today, we're going to talk about the approved FY26 budget for the Behavioral Health Division within the Health Department. We'll briefly go over the mission and values that guide us, how and what we do in behavioral health, and provide you with some snapshots of our program and services. We would then move into some of the work we are doing to contribute to the implementation of the Homeless Action Response Plan, and then we'll present on the proposed FY26 budget, key funding decisions for the next fiscal year, and we will break down some of the impacts of those decisions. Next slide. In this first part of the presentation, I want to walk you through the statutory regulations that define our scope and set of requirements for our service delivery. I would then take you through the mission and values that guide our efforts on a daily basis. Next slide. We are committed to maintaining a client-driven, culturally responsive approach while providing the highest level of care through a trauma-informed lens. The set of core values that you see on this slide underpins the mission, and each of these values is operationalized in our proposed budget. For example, The budget ensures that specific positions with knowledge, skills, and ability, often referred to as KSAs, are embedded across programs to address cultural and language-specific needs of the population they serve. If a specialized population is identified with a need for a specific approach, employees with KSAs have been budgeted to meet the population's specific needs. Training for staff is budgeted so that all staff are able to perform their duties in alignment with our trauma-informed practices. Compliance staff is funded through this budget so that all programs adhere to our value-based policies and practices, as well as all relevant rules and regulations. Next slide. This slide describes the statutory requirements that establish our obligations and authority. Under state law, the Board of Commissioners, which is you, is considered the local mental health authority. The Behavioral Health Division is responsible for ensuring that a system of safety net services is available for people with substance use disorder and experiencing severe and persistent mental illness based on funding availability. Some of the ways that we meet our statutory requirements will be discussed throughout this presentation. Next slide. In this next section, I will touch on some of the work we do broadly, including a deeper look at a few of our programs. But first, I want to tell you a story that I think can help best understand how our work is done by our professional staff every day. As I was preparing for this budget presentation, I got an email from a community-based provider that really moved me. This partner described how he had screened an individual for his program, but the person did not meet the program criteria. He said he decided to reach out to one of our internal programs because he thought that the individual could benefit from the support, guidance, and navigation they offered. He reported that the behavioral health staff, and I quote, followed with him pretty quickly after receiving the referral and gathered some additional information about the individual he had referred, and even work with him on ways to improve the initial referral process in the future, close quote. He was so impressed with the external customer service both he and the client received that he took time out of his day to let me know of this interaction. He closed by saying, I know examples like this take place every day in the services provided under the Behavioral Health Division in general, and this team more specifically. I just figure if people can reach out in real time to report concerns or displeasure, I would attempt to add some balance in the feedback loop and provide appreciative feedback. I hope you keep this example in mind as we go through our budget today. This example highlights the professionalism and dedication of our staff that shows up every day to improve the lives of Multnomah County residents. They provide the highest standard of clinical care, internal and external customer service, and is always looking for ways to improve our system of care. Next slide. To operationalize the community mental health program statutory responsibility described in the previous slide, this slide shows some of the behavioral health division programs across the division that services are provided in. The top section illustrates the various work units and programs that meet our statutory responsibility. Many of these program services are contracted and monitored by our staff to ensure that they are being delivered as outlined in our CFA agreement with the Oregon Health Authority and are compliant with applicable laws and federal rules and consistent with best practices. The bottom one is listed is our internal services that focus on that is there to ensure compliance and legal requirements. And they ensure that those with lived experience input into, ensure that those with lived experience have input into how programs operate and enable us to center equity in all our work. Now let's take a look at some examples of behavioral health programs. Next slide. Our prevention and wellness team sits within the addiction prevention unit. The team focuses on 3 areas of prevention: substance misuse, problem gambling, and suicide. The team is designed to have primary prevention under one unit to improve primary prevention strategy development, cross-system collaboration, and to improve community-based efforts. The prevention team strives to create awareness, increase early intervention behavior, reduce stigma around these topics, and to create a norm where people are more likely to access services. This slide shows some of the team's accomplishments. Next slide. The Addiction and Prevention Team issues contracts for substance use services for the and underinsured and low-income individuals in Multnomah County. The unit contract covers the 4 continuous substance use disorder services, both clinical and non-clinical, which such as withdrawal management, outpatient, residential, recovery-supported services like recovery-supported housing. There are various substance use housing models that we fund. Our transitional housing, for example, with substance use, target those who have completed and are leaving treatment services. These individuals are generally stable, working on long-term recovery goals and awaiting permanent or stable housing placements. Our supported housing models are designed for individuals who are still in treatment. Typically, they are either in outpatient or intensive outpatient services. These programs are generally staffed with people with lived experience who are assisting individuals in their recovery goals and helping them to navigate pro-social activity while living in clean, safe, therapeutic environments. This year, we funded over 359 units of substance use disorder recovery housing. Next slide. Multnomah County launched a deflection program on September 1st, 2024, which offers a warm handoff to behavioral health services in lieu for law enforcement to behavioral health services in lieu of arrest for possession of a controlled substance. The county program is a partnership with law enforcement, the DA, the courts, and the county health department. Deflection is offered out at the Coordinated Pathway Center. Operations started out with limited hours, but we have expanded to 24/7 as of mid-April 2025 of this year. If a person opts into deflection, an officer brings them to the Pathway Center where they receive medical, substance use disorder, and basic needs screenings and meet with a case manager to receive a customized case plan. The person then has 30 days to complete at least one action from their care plan for successful completion of deflection. In the first quarter of deflection operations, a total of 220 individuals were referred. 67% of those were fully engaged, and 26% successfully completed deflection. Last month, we began offering sobering services to individuals in our deflection program, and also this service is offered to law enforcement to drop off individuals who is experiencing acute intoxication of alcohol and other substances. Sobering services are short-term, less than 24 hours, and focus on stabilizing the individuals who are intoxicated and medically cleared to receive sobering services. Individuals receive observation, monitoring, and care coordination services, and at our particular site, we provide comfort medication as needed. Next slide. The Office of Consumer Engagement, often called OCE, is housed within the Director's Office to ensure that the voices of people with lived experience are involved in major decision-making. OCE works to destigmatize the impact of mental health and addiction, amplify the voices of lived experience, increase access to recovery support services, promote health and wellness, and act as a liaison between community and county leadership via councils and committees such as the Behavioral Health Advisory Committee. OCE leads with race and advocate for the marginalized and unrepresented community. Next slide. The Behavioral Health Resource Centers is a facility that is specifically designed to meet the needs of people with mental health and substance use challenges who may also live outside. BHRC offered day services, shelter, and bridge housing supported services. Individuals can have a place to relax and find help and hope 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's a bridge towards more service engagement and a path to stable housing. In the day center, employees with lived experience provide engagement strategies to help individuals make decisions for their recovery needs. It offers access to restrooms, showers, laundry, lockers, computers, and charging station. Also, the BHRC has 2 housing programs. The first is a 33-bed, low-barrier, mixed-gender shelter that is pet-friendly. The second is a 19-bed, 90-day bridge housing program that provides assistance to individuals seeking to address their behavioral health goals and is looking for more stable housing. The Bridge Housing Program is mixed gender, and each individual receives a housing plan. Other services offered includes life skill training and support, connections to treatment and other services, as well as peer support services for recovery and daily living. The goal of these programs is to have at least the goal of these two programs is to at least have 30% of their participants exit permanent housing, or at least 20% exit to non-permanent stable housing, such as friends, residential, inpatient treatment at time of exit. The program is currently at 12% of getting individuals into permanent housing post-exit. However, they are showing a 4% increase from last fiscal year. Next slide.
Anthony, I just want to jump in real quick. When I was asking some questions about these programs with the SHS funding, a response I got said that the Bridge Housing was not funded in '26, but it sounds like it is funded. So I'm confused on what's actually happening in this program offer and would just love, whatever follow-up is fine, just would love to know which thing is actually moving forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Can you briefly, if you know this, and if not, follow up, what are we seeing with people leaving these programs where if they are not going into permanent housing, do we lose them entirely? Do we see them again back in our day center? I'm just very curious about those who are not moving to a more stable housing
Okay.
situation.
I guess someone has captured these questions, right? Okay, fantastic. Newbie don't know, so.
Christian Elkin is up.
Okay, sounds fantastic. We did, okay. Make sure I'm on the right, okay. The BHRC also provide community and band outreach services. A neighborhood outreach team provides daily outreach to individuals in needs around the center and in the downtown core by community-based provider. They also work to connect with local businesses and providers to act as an intermediate point of contact for individuals to get information and share concerns for their neighbors. The outreach van is located at the corner of Northwest Broadway and Northwest Gleason Street and is available daily from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. to offer basic needs supplies. In addition to basic needs supplies, the van provides tickets to access the BHRC Day program. Next slide. The next few slides shows a snapshot of the demographics of the individuals served by 3 of our programs. The first program is the Behavioral Health Call Center that provides 24-hour support for individuals in distress. More information will be shared about this program later in this presentation. The second is the Multnomah County Intensive Transition Team, or often called MIT, which provides outreach to members of Health Share of Oregon, who are admitted into an inpatient psychiatric hospital who do not have a mental health provider at the time of admission. MIT provides short-term intensive case management to connect clients with community-based services, including behavioral health, substance use, primary care, and specialty care. And third is the CHOICE program that provides care coordination services for adults with a severe and persistent mental illness at the Oregon State Hospital in licensed residential and or acute care setting to support discharge planning back to the community. On this slide, you can see that the participant breakdowns by gender for each program. In all 3 of these programs, the majority of those served identify as male. Also, across all 3 programs, the percentage of participants that identify as female is consistent at about 39%. Next slide. This graph shows the breadth of racial identity of our CHOICE program participant in fiscal year 2024. The majority of participants in the CHOICE identify as white. Black African Americans identified participant make up the second largest racial demographic, served at about 60.7%. According to the 21-22 census data, the Black population in Multnomah County represented about 5.8% of the total Multnomah County population. This indicates that the efforts to reach this population were successful. Next slide.
I have a question about this one. Is there no Latine population, or is that included on the white?
So what was that?
The Latine population?
Oh, yeah, it's under, because Latino is considered an ethnicity, So it's under other race and ethnicity.
So is this using like the federal designation?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thanks. But I'm assuming, I know for our local programs, we do look at that.
Yes, we do. Yes, and I want to have some great stuff.
Great, thanks.
I have a question on this slide.
Okay.
When it comes to involuntary commitments, the Indigenous community is significantly overrepresented, but it looks like in this slide, we are not even quite at a representative number. So I'm curious about our outreach to the Native and Indigenous people, because I want to make sure we're creating alternatives to involuntary care.
We could definitely get back to you on that. Okay, which one am I? What number is that? 15? Okay. Next slide. Did I do? Oh, no, I'm on the right slide. This slide shows racial demographics for MIT participants, which are similar to what we see in CHORS. We also see the same success in reaching Black and African Americans. Of the 278 individuals served, more than 18% self-identified as Black African Americans. Next slide. On this slide, you can see the total number of inbound and outbound calls was over 78,000, yet only about 6,000 racially identified were known. This could be because a person chose not to provide this information about themselves, or because it was not gathered due to the caller levels of distress and needs. In 2024 data, we can still see that the number of Black and African Americans are still proportionally high relative to the 2021 census. Demographics like this, what I just presented, we use data like I just presented and launched the Latino Mental Health Line this fiscal year, and have a number of KSA bilingual and bicultural positions to meet the needs of the community. We also track how many callers need language services and how often those services can be provided by staff or through external interpretation services. Now we'll hand it over to Jay to talk about additional services.
Next slide, please. Oregon statute requires a court to order a consultation from the Community Mental Health Program in all criminal cases that question an individual's ability to aid and assist in their own defense due to a complicating mental health disorder. Multnomah County's Aid and Assist team responds to about 60 court orders each month, where we advise the court and then support the individual through the criminal justice process. If the court determines that any of these individuals are, in fact, unable to aid in assist in their defense, the judge can order that they go to the state hospital for treatment, or order they participate in community restoration services in the community. Can you hear me okay? At this moment, as a snapshot, our Aid and Assist team is monitoring and creating discharge plans for over 100 individuals at the state hospital, and we are monitoring and supporting 120 individuals in the community under community restoration. For each individual, we are working to counteract the unnecessary delays in resolving legal cases that can often happen due to unaddressed mental health and addictions needs, and reduce the likelihood that they're returning to the jail only because they were unable to access services and treatments in the community. Next slide, please. The Early Assessment and Support Alliance helps young people with early signs of psychosis. It can be tremendously distressing for any person who experiences psychosis, and for a young adult, it can be disruptive to their development towards adulthood and independence. Also, a delay between the onset of psychotic symptoms and the start of appropriate treatment results in poor symptomatic and functional recovery. It can lead to social isolation, challenges with addictions, involvement with the criminal justice system, and depression or other mental health issues. Multnomah County's ESA program offers a chance to alter the trajectory of a psychotic disorder before it can take hold by addressing the symptoms early and introducing skills and resources to succeed at school or work, to enjoy satisfying relationships with family and friends, and not just to manage a mental health condition, but to flourish and thrive. ESA's multidisciplinary team wraps itself and other supports around not only the individual, but their family and anyone who is supportive to the individual to help them succeed. These services greatly reduce unnecessary hospitalizations and institutionalization and can reduce the amount of time that someone suffers due to or is at risk due to their symptoms.
I have a question about this program and probably might have to follow up. To what degree do we bill private insurers or Care Oregon or Trillium for individuals for participation in ESA? And then the second question, which is a little more in the weeds, is have we looked at or asked the Oregon Health Authority if they consider ESA a medically necessary intervention? And I use that language specifically because Oregon, under our new 1115 waiver, is no longer allowed to use the prioritized list for children up to age 23. And if ESA, which I would argue is the most evidence-based intervention for this population and has been for 30 years, if it is medically necessary, then I think it must be paid for because we no longer have a waiver from something called EPSDT, which is early periodic screening and treatment. And so I would like us to look into that, hopefully get an answer, and then be billing because it is a required service.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes. Okay, well, next slide, please. Multnomah County's Behavioral Health Call Center, also known as the Crisis Line, offers immediate access to trained counselors who provide emotional support, listen to concerns, and help de-escalate a crisis situation. The call center is open 24/7 and answers about 4,000 calls each month originating from Multnomah County. This includes warm transfers from 911 and 988 from Lines for Life. The call center also provides crisis line services for our neighboring Washington County 24/7 and answers about 1,000 calls a month originating from Washington County. And starting this fiscal year in fiscal year 25, our call center began covering Clackamas County's crisis line on nights, weekends, and holidays, and is receiving an additional 400 calls per month originating from Clackamas County. This allows us to take a regionalized, cost-effective approach to these services. The counselors also make approximately 1,500 outgoing calls per month to follow up with individuals who have called and might need extra support connecting to resources. Multnomah County's crisis line diverts individuals experiencing mental health crises away from unnecessary use of 911 and emergency services, and a person does not have to be in crisis to call for help, though many who do call find it can be the first step towards finding relief, hope, and options. Next slide, please. Multnomah County's Urgent Walk-in Clinic is the only behavioral health urgent care available to the entire community. Urgent care services for medical conditions are common, but accessing immediate help for an unplanned behavioral health or psychiatric need is often not readily available. Too often, people have to wait for mental health care, yet there are many circumstances when mental health care cannot wait. This may include having a prescription refilled, getting help in a crisis, or just needing to talk with someone so symptoms do not increase. Urgent Walk-in plays a crucial role in our local system's ability to provide timely access to mental health care by de-escalating emergencies, preventing unnecessary hospitalizations, and linking community members and their families to ongoing treatments and supports. Next slide, please. And this graph shows the services utilized within the walk-in clinic for fiscal year '24. The red line at the bottom captures the visits with licensed medical professional for psychiatric prescribing services. And we highlight this psychiatric prescribing service because the urgent walk-in clinic frequently serves as a bridge medication site for individuals in need of short-term prescription services while awaiting ongoing medication management. And then the green line captures our clinician and peer services, and the purple line adds the two service together. Then the blue bars capture the unique individuals per month. It is not infrequent that an individual may be asked to return to the walk-in clinic as part of a stabilization plan or for making solid connections to treatments and supports. And I will pass it to Jessica now. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to be talking about our overlay with the Homelessness Response Action Plan. Next slide, please. The Behavioral Health Division has a deep understanding of the intersection of homelessness and significant behavioral health needs in our community. We see this manifested as housing instability, intermittent homelessness, and chronic homelessness across all age groups and demographics that our division serves. We have intentionally aligned our work with the Homelessness Response Action Plan to ensure that our efforts are leveraging the priorities and efforts in our region. Some of the aspects from this plan that we have focused on specifically are collaboration and gap analysis study of the number of inpatient and outpatient beds needed to serve higher acuity individuals in the community, development of the expanded comprehensive local plan, which is informed by assessments of current services and capacity and the unmet needs or gaps in capacity, investment in supportive and transitional housing units for individuals to move into from facility-based care for addiction and mental health services. Our residential services team provides technical assistance and support to both existing and new licensed residential programs and invaluable support to the teams who are referring individuals into these programs to effectively navigate the process. The Promoting Access to Hope team, or PATH, provides outreach and care coordination to individuals at the intersection of substance use disorder and houselessness, and assists these individuals to find the treatment, services, and housing that will meet their individual needs. The creation of the Coordinated Care Pathway Center, which Anthony spoke about earlier, and the continued operation of the Behavioral Health Resource Center. Next slide, please. This slide is just a snapshot of some of the Behavioral Health Division's FY25 supported housing services funding investments and represents some of the different ways these funds are being leveraged to move people with substance use disorder and/or behavioral health needs into housing. Often, people in early recovery need additional support before moving into permanent housing. We pass funds through to a community partner that operates transitional supportive housing services for 80 people at any given time, serving approximately 190 participants annually. Outpatient and intensive outpatient services for substance use are available on site at this program, and the goal is for participants to transition to permanent housing at the time of exit. The Homeless Services Department partnered with the Behavioral Health Division over 3 years ago to pair regional long-term rent assistance, or ARLA, vouchers with clients working with assertive community treatment, or ACT teams. We eventually expanded this to include intensive case management teams and the Early Assessment and Support Alliance, and have matched 150 households with long-term rent assistance while leveraging the intensive behavioral health support already in place through their ACT, ICM, and ESA providers. I need to make a correction to the number on this slide. Approximately 70 individuals, not 88, are served annually in Bridgeview Transitional Housing Program, which has 48 single occupancy rooms and a significant on-site support, which I will share more about later in the presentation. PATH, or our Promoting Access to Hope team, provides housing assistance to individuals who are enrolled in PATH services and are currently houseless or in need of support transitioning from a temporary placement, such as residential, intensive outpatient with housing, or shelter, into sober living and housing with a stabilization plan. These funds support individuals with an initial deposit and up to 3 months of rental assistance. while clients are actively enrolled in substance use disorder treatment and seeking employment. A minimum of 10 individuals are connected to housing annually, and the program confirmed last week that so far in FY25, 25 individuals have benefited from this resource. Next slide, please. We know that shelter does not solve homelessness. However, it can be a critical stepping stone for individuals to have the safety and stability needed to work on their more permanent housing goals. Individuals who are experiencing serious mental illness and often co-occurring substance use disorder often do not succeed in accessing or retaining services in more traditional congregate shelter sites. Multnomah County supports 2 motel shelters at 3 locations that are focused on supporting this population. The Cultivating Communities and Bridging Connections programs provide shelter and wraparound services for up to 76 people at any given time. These programs are low barrier, motel-based emergency shelter, serving individuals experiencing severe and persistent mental illness, co-occurring conditions, complex service needs, and significant housing barriers. The provider focuses on delivering care through a trauma-informed, inclusive, person-centered harm reduction, peer-informed, and crisis prevention framework. The model leverages existing behavioral health care teams to enhance support and to ensure ongoing services after the participants move on from shelter. Excuse me. Key priorities include facilitating housing access, actively coordinating with ongoing providers, and maintaining consistent collaborative engagement to provide integrated care that meets each individual's unique needs and goals. Next slide, please.
Yeah, you can ask some questions now. And Jessica, thanks for showing up. We're all feeling for you
I
right
know
now.
I have a bit of a cold. I'm doing my best.
You are, you're doing great.
Can I go first or you want to go? Okay. Just a couple of questions. Again, feel free to just follow up. I know that you are not the only entity that provides housing for our houseless population with behavioral health needs. But I am curious if you have a sense, in a combination with Department of Homeless Services, how many units do we have, or in a residential facility, beds do we have total for this population? And then what is the estimated size of our houseless population who experience? If you could break that down, although they are not clean lines between people with substance use disorder, people with behavioral health issues, and then people with dual diagnosis. My second question was, how many inpatient treatment beds are there for people with severe mental illness and dual diagnosis? And what is the population of people who are homeless with severe mental illness and a substance use disorder? Those are my questions. Thank you.
So a couple pieces for me. One, when you're talking about demographics of folks being served, just more largely by this division, same question as yesterday. Are we asking about housing status, not just in homeless services programs, but in the larger behavioral health work? Two is I will absolutely be submitting a budget note on any SHS funding that you all have to get the outcomes that you're tracking in line with what we're asking for in homeless services, including the day center. I'm also interested with Bridgeview. Is that do you contract to Bridgeview?
Yes.
So I'll also want to know what their housing placement outcomes are, at how they're getting folks out of treatment and into permanent housing. Um,
Can you, oh, I'm just curious. I'm aware of a Bridgeview, but it might not be a treatment Bridgeview. Are there more than one thing named Bridgeview?
I think there's two.
So many bridge programs. I believe there's only one Bridgeview. I know that the program has historically always been a transitional setting. And my understanding from the provider is that they are working towards moving it to more of a permanent supported housing model.
Yeah, that's what we ended up having to do with the Royal Palm because HUD does not pay for transitional housing for people with severe and persistent mental illness anymore. But I will want to know what their outcomes are. And so I just wanted to put that out on the record because I do think it's really important that we can actually compare outcomes from these different programs, that even though they're different departments, it's the same population. We should have the same outcome goals and expectations. So I'll be working on that. Thank you.
All right. I think any other,
I'm sorry. On the program offer 40074A, there is an outcome goal. It mentions Bridgeview in here is why I'm bringing it up today. It says percentage of non-Multnomah County residents placed in RTF or secure residential treatment. And I'm curious, are partner jurisdictions supporting funding for programs that are serving folks outside of Multnomah County?
we'll,
I think that Bridgeview is built into a larger program offer that includes our licensed residential programs, but we can look at that and get back to you with the details.
A lot of residential units are actually controlled by the Psychiatric Security Review Board, which is statewide, and they will place people from other counties in.
I totally appreciate that. I still have that question. And then I want to understand, because you have Bridgeview mentioned in the program offer number I just talked about, and then you have a separate program offer called number 40074B titled Bridgeview, and I'm unclear how these work together. Thanks.
any other questions? Okay. I'm going to save mine. Sure. Okay. All right. Thanks. Go ahead. I don't know if that's back to Jessica.
All right. The Behavioral Health Division aims to improve access to behavioral health interventions and treatments for individuals in need, with a focus on integrated approaches, cultural specificity, and reducing involvement with the criminal justice system. Next slide, please. So we've got some goals and strategies. I won't read verbatim, but one of our goals, that individuals will experience reduced delays in accessing appropriate substance use disorder and mental health treatment placements. Strategies include continuing comprehensive local plan and systems transformation work, and improving data, accessibility, workforce expansion, and a service continuum. This work is done in collaboration with our system partners, specifically CCOs, OHA, health systems, and community providers. As we improve data sharing across systems, we will better understand the gains and outcomes as well as the remaining gaps to focus on. Next slide, please. Another goal is to increase access for communities of color. Multnomah County communities of color will have greater access to culturally and linguistically specific services. This involves contracting for services that address inequities and meet cultural needs, as well as recruiting and hiring diverse staff. An example of tracking outcomes that came to mind for me is that we can track internal creation of positions within the county that have knowledge, skills, and abilities specific to culture and language. And we are tracking changes in the demographics of the people that we are serving for various programs. Anthony shared slides earlier showing program demographics, one of those programs, the Multnomah Intensive Transition Team, added KSA positions a few years ago. And this was specifically because we knew that we were consistently underserving the Black and African American individuals who qualified for this service. Current data helps us understand that we're moving in the right direction. Doesn't mean that we're where we need to be, but we're moving in the right direction and can keep track of that. Next slide, please. Our third goal, increased access for all. All individuals, regardless of insurance or ability to pay, will have improved access to behavioral health, physical health, and social services. Strategies include funding treatment for uninsured consumers, reducing criminal justice involvement through diversion programs, and outreach to people experiencing homelessness and substance use issues. Additionally, there is a focus on assisting individuals with accessing community-based pathways to treatment, recovery, housing, and other services. Next slide, please. The Behavioral Health Division's work through Aid and Assist, PATH, Jail Care Coordination, the Coordinated Pathway Center, and our commitment to further develop partnerships with law enforcement, the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, and Corrections Health will bring measurable outcomes to this work. Next slide, please.
I'm sorry, I have some questions on that last slide. You have program offer 40088. I'm interested, the outcomes in the program offer don't relate to the human being served. And so I'm interested in what are the person-related outcomes for this program and what are the percentage of successful diversions?
I'm going to say that we're going to get back to you on that.
Absolutely.
Any other questions, or should we move to slide 32?
What population specifically does program offer 40088 serve?
Sure. That includes our Aid and Assist team, our civil commitment program, pre and post commitment. We also support the Circuit Court's mental health court, and then we have a smaller upbridge program through an impacts grant.
I do have a question, even though I agree with Commissioner Singleton of having more than avoid continued justice involvement. Do you have statistics about what percentage of individuals who are being served through any of these are picking up new charges?
We could pull that data for you, yes.
Go ahead, Jessica.
All right. The anticipated opening of the Sobering Crisis and Stabilization Center will offer tangible opportunities to move this work forward and change outcomes for individuals who will be served there. This is further seen in other new resources coming online in the community to meet the growing need for treatment of co-occurring substance use and high acuity mental health needs. Now I'll be handing it off to Anthony. Next slide, please.
I just want to appreciate the program offer you have here that's increasing the staff to do the follow-up. Thank you for hearing us on that and making that change in this budget.
I have a follow-up question on this. I'm very interested in us looking at the pros and cons of providing these services via contracted services, internal services, or through our FQHC and the various reimbursement rates we could get related to that. Thank you.
Deflection and sobering program?
Oh. Next slide.
You have your questions now? Yeah, just go, jump in.
Microphone?
I'm going to go back to this sobering beds. So we brought sobering beds online. Can you share what the sort of daily census has been or utilization has been since those came online?
I think I got yesterday, it's been a total of 5 individuals been referred to the sobering beds. And I think most of them came from deflection. So they were people who came in for deflection who moved into the sobering beds. So we haven't had any law enforcement bring anyone.
So since the sobering bed started at 13, there's been 5 separate
Correct.
utilizations. Okay, that's helpful and discouraging. So hopefully
We got some plans. Hopefully we can increase that.
we know there's a need. It's evident on the streets. I had a couple questions about, and this is similar to some of the questions I asked yesterday. Slide 28, there's several slides that have the goal and a strategy. But when I look at the PowerPoint slides and then the program offers, there actually isn't a, like, here's a numerical goal, and then here's what we're doing. It's more, here's just the number of people we're going to serve. So I'm wondering if we have those, because that, how effective? Are we serving 5% of the people? Are we serving 95%? I guess
I think we can
looking
get
forward
back to that. I think that's the one about the HVAC stuff.
And also just for folks that weren't here yesterday, so part of the question was around both the kind of, it would be helpful for us with these goals and strategy slides to be putting the outcomes that we're trying to achieve, and then how far are we away from the outcome? Is that a fair summary?
Right. So like,
okay.
we know X number of people need the service. Our goal is maybe this year it's like to get it to 60%, which is a specific number, and then we'll be able to actually see whether we met the goals versus we did an like reporting on the activity.
So maybe in follow-up, it would be helpful for kind of some of these slides for us to add screenshot them and then add kind of additional information as it relates to the different.
Just like
slides.
adding
Yeah.
measurable goals. And then the slide 8, sort of similar question. It's a set of numbers, but I don't have any idea. Was 1,152 individuals being trained? Is that 100% or 80%? So what are we shooting for in each of these categories? And I'm looking for a lot more detail on slide 9, the substance use disorder housing. And it may have been in your notes, but I'm a visual learner. So a picture doesn't tell me kind of where we are. So it'd be helpful to get, at least in writing, what the details are.
Commissioner Jones, if you have any questions now. You do have one? No. Okay, okay, great. All right, I think we can,
Actually, I have one.
oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
What's the utilization rate of the Multnomah Crisis and Treatment Center?
I'll get back to you on that.
Great, okay, thank you.
The walk-in?
Yeah,
Center?
that's
Oh,
it.
the walk-in.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, we,
So the walk-in center or the?
the clinic,
Uh,
because
Absolutely.
it shows like the number of visits, but is that like everybody who wanted to get in got in, or again, what's the scope?
Yes, everyone does get in, and then we do monitor our wait times and make sure we are attentive to any time of the day that wait times might be getting longer so that we're supporting individuals if there's an hour wait but everyone does get seen who walks in.
Okay, so, thank you. And I guess it's utilization, but also, is it 100% utilized and that's all the capacity we need? Or is it that there's a lot more capacity needed? Again, it's sort of where are we on the spectrum of fulfilling or meeting the need that exists?
Yeah, that was a follow-up question because that's a great question. If we track this, are we serving people only in one geographic part of Multnomah County? And therefore, we may not be giving the same level of service to other parts.
So are you, I think the question is like, do you have a picture of like where the folks that are coming, that are using the service, like what part of the county they're coming from?
We could look into by zip code or by area of who comes in, absolutely.
Okay.
See what we have.
I mean, it's a great question. I mean, it is in District 3. But I'm curious, is like just best practice, is that the best way to do something, to have it very centralized and all the services there, or the more efficient and cost-effective way to do it, or to have it more distributed, given the geographic area that the county covers?
I think that's a good question, especially for Multnomah County. So we could prepare a response for you,
Okay.
what we think. But anecdotally, of course, something and spreading it out is always the best if it's cost effective to have more than one clinic.
Yep, go for it.
Could you go to slide 34? We made a point to take a structured approach to selecting what reductions to make. This slide and the next shows what we consider when making our budgetary decisions. Next slide. As the department deputy director described in the department overview budget rubric, we had the challenge of looking at the unique statutory mandated roles through an equity lens and keeping those core services as whole as possible. I want to say again, these were very difficult decisions, and I'm sure you hear this sentiment across the departments during these presentations. I will take you through our decision framework and process in detail, starting with an explanation of the exercise we were given. We were asked to propose a 12% reduction in general funds, and specifically to identify whole programs that we could cut, as well as other cost-saving measures. To achieve this objective, we developed a prioritization framework, taking into consideration the rubric on slide 34 and the budget approach outlined on this slide. Our first approach was to identify mandated required programs and services and the critical infrastructure and internal services associated with those programs and services. Based on this criteria, if general funds were used to support these programs and services, we did not reduce funding in these areas. The next group of programs and services that we prioritized for retention would be those that impacted housing retention and stopping preventable deaths. After that, we identify programs and services paid through general funds, but for which alternative sources of revenue could be used instead. Programs and services in this category would not need to be cut. Instead, they could be used, they could be sustained through other available funds. And finally, we identify programs and services that were revenue generating, yet funded using general funds, for which other funds to replace general funds was not available. This is where the majority of our general fund reductions were made. Later, we will speak more about this in our reduction portion of the presentation. Next slide. In the next set of slides, Brady will provide an overview of our behavioral health budget. Turn it over to Brady.
All right, thank you, and good morning, Chair and Commissioners. In the next section, we'll take a closer look at the behavioral health budget by the numbers. For fiscal year 2026, we are proposing a total operating budget of $147.3 million. This budget supports 333.91 full-time equivalent FTE positions across all the programs in behavioral health. Compared to fiscal year 25, the operating budget reflects a 3.2% increase, or approximately $4.6 million in additional spending. Included in this budget are general fund investments totaling $2.6 million, of which $1.6 million is one-time only funding to support critical short-term needs and $1 million in ongoing funding to maintain and strengthen essential services. This budget maintains core service delivery while responding to evolving community needs and strategic priorities. Next slide, please. The fiscal year 26 operating budget reflects a 3.2% increase from fiscal year 25. This growth is largely driven by inflationary costs, service demands, and strategic investments. FTE count decreased from 347.03 to 333.91, a 3.8% reduction year over year. Key funding sources for personnel are general fund and federal and state funding. These two sources make up the majority of our staffing support and remain critical to sustaining our workforce. Next slide, please. In fiscal year 2026, contractual services account for the largest share of our operating budget at 49%. This includes vendor agreement and professional services. Personnel costs, which include salaries, wages, benefits, make up 40.19% of the total budget. While FTEs have decreased, personnel remains a significant portion of our spending due to benefits and cost of living adjustments. The remaining 10.74% covers all other operating needs, such as materials, supplies, equipment, and facility costs. Next slide, please. Our largest program area is community mental health, which accounts for 46.19% of the total operating budget. That's approximately $68 million, supporting 128.45 FTEs. This reflects our continued investment in behavioral health services and community-based support. The second largest area is care coordination, which represents 20.7% of the budget, or about $30.5 million, with 69 FTEs. This program plays a key role in connecting individuals with services and improving health outcomes. Together, these two programs represent 2/3 of our total budget and workforce, highlighting the importance in our service delivery. Next slide, please. New for fiscal year 2026, instead of a 5-year trend, this shows the change in FTE from fiscal year 2019, pre-COVID. This chart highlights the year-over-year change in FTE from 2019 through 2026. Between 2019 and 2020, we saw a 4.1% increase in FTE. In 2021, there was a significant reduction of about 11%, largely due to the pandemic impact on operations and budget. From 22 onward, the trend reversed with gradual and then significant increases. In 2026, we're seeing a 3.8% decrease, primarily due to notable reductions in general fund support for FTE, even as federal and state contributions remain strong. Next slide, please. Overall, we saw moderate growth across most major funding sources from fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 26. The general fund increased by 3.68% from $35 million to $36.5 million. This fund remained relatively steady year over year, providing foundational support for core operations. Federal and state funding increased by 4.16%. This continues to be a critical source of funding, particularly for staffing and program expansion. Currently, federal funds account for approximately 23.3% of the total funding for the Behavioral Health Division. This represents a significant but stable portion of our budget, and we are closely monitoring all relevant federal developments to ensure we remain informed and prepared. Our supportive housing services funding decreased by about 6.5% from $17.3 million to $16.2 million. This is the most notable decrease. Our preschool for all funding increased to $2 million in fiscal year 26, which reflects growing investment in early childhood and family support services. We also saw our other funds grow to $637,000. Next slide, please.
I'm curious, the preschool for all, what kind of services are being provided to families?
So there's a lot of early childhood behavioral health and mental health that supports children in the classroom. That's happening. It's part of having an integrated classroom with children with different developmental disabilities and.
I'd love to see what that.
Yeah, can I see what that is?
Yeah. And there may be, again, we're having Preschool for All present tomorrow. Let me see.
It doesn't matter to me who
Yeah.
answers the question.
So-
I'm trying to get just a sense of what type of service it is.
Yeah. So we should expect to see that detail in the, yeah. 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 Thank you.
I'm Yolanda Gonzalez, so you see her pronouns. I'm the Senior Manager for Direct Clinical Services. Early childhood mental health is an evidence-based treatment model where we provide what's that? Oh, thanks, sorry. Both micro, meso, and macro level interventions, prevention mostly for children at the site. And then we also do treatment, home-based treatment for the families who are identified and referred to the program. So it's a two-tier program, and we do the same thing in all the Head Starts in Multnomah County, where we provide classroom observations, consultations, support for the admins to create a healthy environment for children who are in those spaces, and then work with the adults to create environments where kids can thrive, and specifically make referrals for kiddos who have been identified who would otherwise be missed in those early years to be sent to MUCP for early assessment for learning disabilities and things like that. So they get both prevention services, trying to interrupt the preschool to prison pipeline for kiddos who otherwise get marked as behavioral concerns or acting out. And so we're there to be a thought partner, a clinical expert, and then help them through an evidence-based practice model, lay the foundation for healthy environments for littles. It's beautiful work, and you could shadow, I'm sure, if you wanted to. They love it.
Yeah, so it's like an early intervention, but.
It's so beautiful, and it's evidence-based practice model. Yeah, so it's, Multnomah County has a beautiful team that does that in both early childhood mental health and preschool for all.
So thanks for describing that.
Yeah.
I'd love to get just a better sense of like, what is 2 million?
Yeah, it's,
I don't need to know right now,
we'll
but
get
maybe
that for you.
tomorrow
Yeah,
in your
there's a breakdown. We have
presentation.
it. Yeah, no problem.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just going to say for DCHS is presenting tomorrow afternoon, and they'll have preschool and early learning where they show where Preschool for All dollars are being spent throughout the county, including with here in the health department. So we'll get more information and details for the board on that tomorrow. Yeah.
All right, next slide, please. In fiscal year 2026, we are investing a total of $4.4 million in beginning working capital, or BWC, to support behavioral health services. The majority, $3.8 million, comes from the Oregon Health Authority County Financial Assistance Agreement. These funds are being strategically invested across several core areas, administration, medical records, quality management, community mental health services, school-based mental health services, and the Behavioral Health Resource Center. An additional $637,000 in beginning working capital comes from reserves retained when we were the insurance-bearing entity. Altogether, these investments support 17.87 FTEs, allowing us to maintain essential staffing and sustain service delivery in key behavioral health programs in fiscal year 26. Now I'll pass it on to Anthony.
Okay. Slides 44 and 45 provides a good representation of our tax dollars at work.
I'm sorry, can I ask about the previous slide? When you say working capital, which, are you saying funds are carried over and it's going to cover that, but next year we will have to figure out how to fund it? Or, so is it one time only in nature?
Yes, beginning working capital is considered one time only in nature.
Thanks, sorry, I just wanted to understand that.
On that same slide, what is in the other beginning working capital category?
The 667,000. What are we funding?
No, what is that color of money?
So this is when we were the risk-bearing entity prior to CCO 2.0 with Cure Oregon. This is essentially unspent funds that were in the risk-bearing, interest-bearing account at the county that were essentially one time only to be spent this year or in 26.
So are they specifically earmarked, or is this general fund?
These were funds that were available for the division's use, and so we chose to use them in this. Am I answering your question?
No, is this specifically earmarked for this purpose, or is this general fund?
It is beginning working capital that was available essentially only to behavioral health. It is not general fund, but it's somewhat like general fund in that they had the flexibility to use it as they chose.
So it's specific to the behavioral health work, then?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So, yeah, and I also wanted to note, Commissioner Moyer, in response to your question earlier, this budget does set aside about $3.2 million for use in fiscal year 2027 or a future fiscal year. So the cliff doesn't come right away. So there is some additional beginning working capital that we saved.
So sorry, could you just state your name for the record?
Oh, I apologize. Yes, Trista Zugel, Health Department Budget Director.
Thank you.
Could we move to slide 44? Okay. Slide 44 and 45 provides a good representation of our tax dollars at work. These slides provide a snapshot of the types of services we deliver to our most vulnerable community members. Our youth ICC provides youth with complex mental health needs who would benefit from support navigating the system, assessing needs, and connecting resources. The care coordinators assess their needs and develop a plan to address them. School-based mental health receives an estimate of 725 referrals for mental health services, and about half of the referrals enroll in mental health services. And in our addiction continuum, over 3,000 individuals receive treatment, recovery, and housing services to support their long-term recovery goals. Our coordinated diversion program diverts over 140 individuals from the Oregon State Hospital or the criminal justice system into community-based restoration services. The Behavioral Health Resource Center provides services to over 100 houseless individuals every day with an array of services, including sheltering services. Next slide. You can move to the next slide. You can actually move to the slide 46. Okay. Slide 46 and 47 show our proposed reductions. As you are aware, our department was given the task of reducing general fund spending due to the deficit. And as I already laid out the process we used to get to the reductions, I would be remiss not to acknowledge that the reductions that we are proposing impact real people who both receive and provide services. Leaders have to take tough choices, and naturally, people will question those decisions. In the case of behavioral health, no reduction would be without consequences or scrutiny. By applying the framework presented earlier, we made statutorily required services and minimized any reductions that would impact our ability to provide safety net services to as many individuals as possible with the available funds we were given. So what you see now lays out those reductions, and I'm going to speak to how we operationalize our decision-making as I outlined in slides 34 and 35. Recalling what I presented on slide 35, we used a number of strategies to reduce county general fund spending. As this slide shows, for example, where possible, we found alternative sources of funding for programs previously funded through county general fund, such as Program Office 00473, 40077, 40085, 40101. Additionally, we found savings by proportionally reducing infrastructure costs associated with programs that would be reduced, and that's in Program Offer 40068. Finally, we identified school-based mental health Program Offer 40068 as a program that was generating revenue and also receiving county general funds. This program was selected for reduction based on the directives to identify whole programs that could be reduced, and we could not find alternative sources of revenue to make up for the general fund reduction. Next slide.
Can I ask some follow-ups? Program Offer 40082, school-based mental health services. I see 13.67 FTE being reduced. Was there also a one-time only FTE that is also not being funded? Who's a counselor position? Is that? Okay, and with a proposed reduction of 13.67, why is there a proposal to add a manager to this program? So if I could get answers to both those questions, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Could we go to the next slide? Next slide. I know the impact of this reduction is significant. However, over the long term, our goal is to build a sustainable model. We recognize the importance of a clinical model that supports clinical best practices. It's tailored to the culture and ethnic diversity reflected in the schools the program serve, and it's also financially viable. Understanding that we now have 16 mental health consultants, we are taking a careful look at the number of factors to maximize the mental health consultants' time across the schools. This includes student health data, mental health consultant utilization data by schools, current contracts with school districts and its implications, the presence of other providers of school-based mental health services in school, the overlap of school-based health centers and school-based mental health clients served, and the impact of union contract rules regarding mental health consultants. The number of schools we will serve will depend on looking at all of these factors together and making sure we are reaching the schools with the highest need of services. The Behavioral Health Division and the Health Department leadership is committed to working with the school-based mental health team, the school districts, and other partners to ensure this work continues. This slide outlines a roadmap of achieving our goals. Now I'll pass it over to Jessica.
Maybe Jessica, just before you go, just a time check for you as we have another presentation over this and a number of other slides. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm going to jump in real quick. I'm curious about the Care Oregon reductions and just kind of where that came from, if there's any particular, was it a performance thing? Was it a budget thing for them? And I know you're not Care Oregon, but hearing from you will help me know what I want to talk to Care Oregon about.
Microphone. Go together. Just your mic.
We'll get that back to you, yeah. It's about $1 million.
And I don't know if it's, who could provide, there were several areas where Care Oregon reductions had impact on county programs, so I think it would be helpful just to get the universal picture of how all of those changes. Yeah, okay, great, okay.
Yes.
Can I ask just a clarifying question related to those who are on Medicaid? Who is the payer for behavioral health services in Oregon for behavioral health direct service? So like counseling, group, anything that would fall under like a clinical nature. Who in Oregon is being paid to provide those services?
Generally speaking, if I understand your question correctly, generally speaking, it would be the CCO would be paying for those services. The only reason that they would not be is if the individual is on open card.
Okay. And from your guys' expertise, do people in Multnomah County struggle to access, people who have Medicaid, do they struggle to access behavioral health services because of a lack of available providers? Yeah.
It varies. Yes. It also depends on what folks need.
If we have any.
If they need, you know, outpatient traditional therapy, no medication management, they can make it to appointments. There is not a particularly difficult timeline to get access to services. If they've got complexities that layer that, 100%.
Yeah. Okay. I would love if, and again, this doesn't need to be right now, if we have done any gap analysis around where our Medicaid population struggles to find providers, I would love to have that. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, on Jessica.
Yeah, and let's try to, so we've got public health coming up at 10:30. We've got about 5 more minutes.
Okay, I'll be quick. So in this process, we identified some challenges to keep in mind. Increased service demand while facing reduced or static funding. Data tracking needs improvement. Gaps exist across the continuum of care for both substance use disorder and behavioral health. Next slide, please. We plan to address these challenges through increasing Medicaid reimbursables, through process improvements, and anticipated improvement in technology through the EPIC transition, building efficiencies into programming and services, and continuing system transformation work to include increased collaboration with our system partners, de-siloing of system workflows, developing better data tracking, and being strategic in populations served and the services we provide to address the most immediate needs that will have the greatest impact on outcomes. Next slide, please. So this is some of our one-time only and backfill pieces. The Bridgeview Transitional Program is a vital resource in our community. They provide housing with significant services on site, including pharmacy services, the ability to build rental history, 24/7 support from residential staff, and access to on-site clinical care, including case management, individual therapy, skills training, and group engagement. The building has 48 single-room occupancy units, and this program was provided an additional $1.3 million of general fund restoration funding to preserve the 48 beds after an SHS funding reduction. Our program offer 40012 includes several programs. This program offer funds long-term rent assistance vouchers, direct client assistance, and housing search and retention for 150 households that are receiving services from ACT, ICM, and ESA. The supportive services for 40 PSH units at Cedar Commons, as well as rent assistance for 30 of those units. Rent assistance and on-site supportive services for 15 PSH units at the Douglas Fir. Support services at Meridian Gardens, PSH for 65 units. And funding for 2 motel shelter programs, Bridging Connections and Cultivating Communities. Next slide, please. The Sobering and Crisis Stabilization Center will offer sobering, withdrawal management, and medication-assisted treatment and deflection. It will include up to 50 sobering and withdrawal management stations. The center will also have a fully functional kitchen, showers, restroom, and laundry facilities. The Behavioral Health Division will operate deflection services at the Sobering and Crisis Stabilization Center, and a contractor will provide sobering and crisis stabilization services. Next slide. There is proposed funding for program planning and operations of the 24/7 Sobering and Crisis Stabilization Center. Proposed funding will provide 5 FTE for program and operation planning and facilitating the sobering leadership team and other advisory groups. The FTE includes 3 outreach workers whose focus will be to engage the community prior to the program launch, to develop relationships and invite the community's perspective into the planning process. These outreach workers will also provide outreach and engagement around the existing coordinated pathway center. A project manager will ensure that the project remains on schedule and that all programmatic requirements, including specific licensing and other critical elements, are in place for opening in 2027. A supervisor will manage the outreach workers and program development of the facility and operations. Next slide, please. I'm handing to Jay.
Can bring us home. Next slide, please. It has been a very busy, active legislative session with over 3,000 bills introduced. We are looking at House Bill 2059 with interest and hope that will increase our residential capacity for substance use disorder and mental health treatment. Next slide, please.
I have a question. Sorry to ask you this.
Can you just wait? I mean, they only have a couple more slides to get through. Okay, thanks.
Okay, and looking forward to HB 204, which is another bill we're looking at interest. And you could read there, it'll help for recruitment and retention. And next slide, please. And we spoke about some of this, and we can get you some of the details that you asked for, but I will say that Care Oregon is a strong partner who was also dealing with budget gaps, and the reductions that I've seen are more so in planned funding for innovative services, more so than the reimbursing treatment services. And we can get you some more details on that. Next slide, please. Pass to Anthony.
Are there any questions? We were 1 minute over, but we're open to questions and bringing back any answers as well. Hey, thanks for having us. For newbies, we really liked the grace. It was great.
Good.
There'll be a few times. A few times.
This is Anthony's first time in the hot seat, though, so you did a great job. Okay, I know some folks are waiting to do their questions for the end, so I'm assuming you've got a lot of questions stored up. And then I think Commissioner Moyer, you said you had an additional question. So Commissioner Jones-Dixon, did you have? Okay, Commissioner Bim Edwards? You did get a mask. Yeah. Perfect, okay.
Mine is just a follow-up and probably can wait until we have a clearer sense. I'm just curious about these legislative spending proposals or what actually ends up happening. If we could get a breakdown from GR with your input about what will come to counties or we could apply for. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Singleton.
Sorry about that. I will be interested to know what, if any, FTE we need to add back to 40068. I know it will depend on any amendments we do around school-based mental health, but I noticed that there was some reductions there based on the school-based mental health reduction. And program offer 40084A, the culturally specific mental health. Is that billing Medicaid? I don't see it in the revenue, so I just wanted to check in on that.
You said 40082.
40084A.
we'll get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Can we please get the number of people served in these programs? Thanks. Just last year's number or whatever.
Sure, I think for that one specifically,
Actually, no. I would really love it for any direct service. That would be great.
yeah. Some of those are in the program offer outputs, so, but we'll, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Behavioral Health. Appreciate it. Lots of follow-up. Rachel, you get to stay. All right, thank you. All right, we will now move into the second part of our work session, and we will focus on our Public Health Officer and Public Health Division. Welcome, everyone. We are going to go ahead and move on to the behavioral, or no, I'm so sorry, Public Health team. Rachel, are you going to kick us off?
Yep, I'm stepping back into my MC role with a new fabulous cast of folks.
I'm wondering, before you start, I just want to give a shout out to the team last night from the health department that was at Lane Middle School. Yeah, I had a chance to go out there because I had some overlapping responsibilities, and the team did a great job sort of providing, I think, really factual information where people can get help, answered lots of questions. I know it was really appreciated, so thanks to the team that was there last night.
Thank you for being there too, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. We appreciate hearing that. It's a fabulous team. And some of that work you'll hear. So again, for the record, Rachel Banks, I'm your Health Department Director with your Public Health team. Here I use she, her, and hers. And you'll hear more about the great work that's done. That's Lane is a great example of that. Not that we want to necessarily have these examples. Some of this work is about trying to work ourselves out of doing disease response and tracking work. But it is obviously a core function of the work that we do. So I am here today. I will let folks introduce themselves and then pass it over to Kirsten.
Yes. Good morning. My name is Kirsten Aird, and I use she, her pronouns. I am the Public Health Division Director, and it is a pleasure to be with you this morning to present our budgets.
Good morning. I'm Bruno, he, him pronouns, Health Officer for Multnomah County Health Department. Thanks for having us this morning.
All right, next slide, please. Because the Health Division and the Health Officer Division are closely linked, Dr. Bruno and I will be moving back and forth between slides describing the good work Multnomah County's public health workforce does every day in both of our divisions and the critical investments these budgets make in the county's public health infrastructure. Next slide, please. Multnomah County's public health system promotes and protects the health of all people where they live, learn, work, worship, and play. All people in Multnomah County deserve to live in a county where they can have the best chance at health. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted major gaps in our public health system, which showed us that new, complex health threats do not impact all people equally. It is unjust that communities of color, Indigenous communities, disability communities, communities with lower income, and other underserved communities experience worse health outcomes. One key solution is to create an equity-centered public health system. Next slide, please. I want to spend some time on this. It's the public health ecosystem, and it's going to kind of be a theme throughout the presentation. Oregon's public health ecosystem is comprised of federal, tribal, state, local, and community-based agencies. Public health powers and responsibilities are shared across each of these groups, and each has its distinct role in the ecosystem. At the federal level, public health authority comes from the U.S. Constitution and is distributed across the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. The executive branch is responsible for enforcing federal laws and is where federal departments and agencies operate. Congress establishes federal agencies like the Department of Health and Human Services. The Department of Health and Human Services mission, believe it or not, is to enhance the health and well-being of all Americans by providing effective health and human services and by fostering sound, sustained advances in the sciences underlying medicine, public health, and social services. HHS has multiple agencies within it, including the Centers for Disease Control, the National Institutes of Health, and the Food and Drug Administration. Outside of HHS, other federal agencies that are key to public health include the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which funds WIC, the Environmental Protection Agency, which has funded our environmental justice work, and the Department of Justice, which has funded our violence prevention work. Together, these agencies influence public health recommendations and provide services on a national scale. At the state level, legal authority for public health comes from the 10th Amendment. Powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. The Oregon Health Authority is the state's public health authority. Oregon Revised Statute 431 outlines the specific responsibilities of OHA, including administering the foundational public health programs, overseeing their local implementation. They have full power in the control of communicable diseases and enforcing state public health laws not delegated to locals for enforcement. Oregon has a decentralized public health system in which local public health authorities retain authority over most fiscal decisions and deliver essential services in their respective communities and through delegation that can enforce state public health laws and their own regulations. The 9 federally recognized tribes in Oregon, all of whom the state honors as sovereign and recognizes their rights to self-determination and self-governance. Multnomah County is home to the county's largest population of urban American Indians and has a long history of investing in community approaches that support the urban Native community. The Future Generations Collaborative is a collective impact partnership between Native-specific and Native-serving organizations, institutions, governments, and communities. And of course, we have community-based organizations. Next slide, please. As previously mentioned, and to add emphasis, Oregon has a decentralized public health system. LPHAs get their legal authority through the same statute as OHA. The Multnomah County Board of Commissioners serves as our local public health authority. That's all of you, also known as our Board of Health. LPHAs are governmental entities tasked with promoting health, preventing disease, and ensuring the protection of communities' health. The County Health Department is our local public health administrator, and our role, as appointed by you, is to manage and execute day-to-day operations under the LPHA's oversight. And by law, our minimum requirements are to control disease, to ensure parent and child health services, to provide environmental health services, to provide health information and referral services, and to collect and report health statistics. I want to put a fine point on that we are the only health entity responsible in statute for providing core governmental public health services for all 800,000 people living in Multnomah County 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Next slide, please. Public health modernization is not a program or a project. It is a core piece of Multnomah County's public health mission to work with communities to advance health equity, protect the most vulnerable, and promote health and wellness for everyone, which I am glad you are modeling by standing up and stretching. And I probably should have said you should all probably take a moment to stand up and stretch and drink some water, because you just listened to 90 minutes of another presentation, and I'm sorry, I just dove right in. So please do not, I do not mind if you do that while I'm talking. So the 4 areas of focus in public health modernization, to begin, communicable disease protection, which means detecting and responding to traditional, like TB, and emerging infectious diseases like COVID. Health promotion, disease and injury prevention, which means supporting environments and policies that provide access to well-being for everyone. environmental health protection, which aims to limit environmental risks to human health, and equitable access to preventive health services, which is ensuring preventive services are widely available. For example, things like tobacco cessation, cancer screenings, or vaccines.
Thank you, Kirsten. Next slide, please. Our Tri-County Health Officer team is composed of 2 Multnomah County Health Officers, Dr. Teresa Everson and I, in partnership with the health officers for Clackamas County and Washington counties, which are Dr. Sarah Present and Dr. Christina Baumann, respectively. Health officers are physician ambassadors to our communities and to the community and the medical providers in the community, both informing and receiving input from frontline physicians and nurses, physician associates, and nurse practitioners. Health officers are on call 24/7 and get direct input on our current and emerging issues from emergency room physicians, infectious disease physicians, Oregon Health Authority, and our neighboring health officers who call us for advice. We work closely with our communicable diseases team and community epidemiology services team for follow-up and analysis. We also convene regional calls on respiratory pathogens with all the major health systems in the Tri-County area. We serve as media spokespeople to convey information about emerging public health issues through press conferences and press releases. And we also provide medical direction and clinical care to county clinics and patients in our region. For example, Dr. Everson is the medical director for our STI clinic and our harm reduction clinic. Next slide, please. The 2 Multnomah County Health Officers, we rely on a mix of funding sources, with less than half of our funding from Multnomah County general funds and the rest funded by EMS franchise fees and Washington County contract fees. And next slide.
All right, next slide. Why we do this important work.
Microphone.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
This graphic from the county health rankings helps visualize the influence the places where we live, work, play, worship, and learn have on one's health, far more than just access to health care or someone's genes. Many factors contribute to health and the conditions that shape how long and how well people live. People and communities can structure society so that everyone has opportunity to thrive. Ways we can work with community and across sectors might include strengthening an education ecosystem through co-locating preschool for all programming with WIC services, having intergenerational health screenings during farmers markets, training more community health workers on extreme heat, or working with high schools to train staff and resource officers in restorative justice practices, each resulting in communities that thrive and are healthier. Next slide. This is probably familiar from yesterday. Our division's investments for this budget year are guided by our unique governmental role and the role of public health in preventing the leading causes of death in our county. In this slide, we can see the top 5 leading causes of death by race and ethnicity for the years 2019 and through 2023, which is the most recent vital records data available. COVID-19 emerged as a leading cause of death, but is now declining, whereas unintentional injury is increasing. Unintentional injury is increasing because this category includes drug overdose. Cancer, heart disease, stroke, liver disease, and diabetes continue to contribute to the top 5 leading causes of death across race and ethnicity. Our programs focus on the upstream factors that lead to these deaths. For example, in a moment, I'll talk about the People's Farmers Market, which works to improve access to healthy food, increases access to preventive health screenings, and referrals to early childhood services, and builds community cohesion, which is a critical risk protective factor for youth drug prevention. The power of the farmers market influences many of the leading causes of death in Multnomah County. Next slide. What we do. Next slide, please. I just want to take a moment for people to take this in and reflect and celebrate. This is one of my most favorite slides. What we do in public health makes a difference. I just want you all to have a moment. While you take this in, I'm going to call out the picture of this young girl. When I saw her, I knew I wanted to highlight her because it showed how I wanted to walk into this presentation as your new public health director. She shows this self-confidence and strength. She's so sassy. She's just like, I got this. And so that's how I'm showing up with you all today. And I really liked the picture of the two gentlemen in the lower right corner, because I hope I leave this presentation with the joy and comfort in them. They are reflecting, they know who they are. And I want to leave with you all knowing that this budget is going to do the very best it can for the most vulnerable, while also staying true to the Multnomah County public health vision. I also want to call out in the center something that's really important. After 5 years, we had our first day in April without a COVID outbreak on the CD books. Right? Next slide, please. Yes. So I'm going to get into some stories that track to public health modernization and our focus areas, starting with prevention and health promotion. So again, why do we do this work? Well, we're going to go back to the leading causes of death in Multnomah County, with cancer being number 1, heart disease being number 2, and unintentional injury being number 3, with overdose leading that. And it starts with where people live, work, play, learn, and worship. That's why we're doing this. People. What we do? Well, what we do is around modernization. We focus on foundational programmings, health promotion and disease prevention and injury prevention, with resources beyond just county general fund, funding from the Centers for Disease Control, which is critical with REACH grants and ACHIEVE grants, funding from the state through the Tobacco Prevention and Education Program using tobacco tax dollars, and public health modernization funding. And then again, County General Fund, which helps us enhance reach and accelerate our progress. How do we do this? How do we get to outcomes and go about doing our work? We do it in and with community, focusing on social cohesion and evidence-based approaches to increase access to healthy and affordable foods, safe places to move, and safe and easy places to receive health services. And again, who do we do this for? Well, in public health, we do this for everyone, but we center it on the communities facing the greatest health inequities, back to using data and the leading causes of death. Events are focused in 7 neighborhood hubs, which also line up with our WIC and Healthy Birth Initiative service areas. Next slide, please. The Multnomah County STI Clinic is a vital public health resource, protecting health and well-being of thousands of individuals across the region and playing a critical role in preventing the spread of STIs. The clinic is small but mighty, playing an outsized role in STI prevention, diagnosis, and treatment. 4,915 visits in 2024, 25,000 lab tests processed. These numbers and our collaborative work with CBOs underscore the profound reach and critical function of our STI clinic in safeguarding the health of Multnomah County residents. With a long-standing history of service and a strong reputation built on community trust, the STI clinic in Multnomah County plays a vital role in HIV diagnosis. This established presence fosters word-of-mouth referrals, bringing in a significant number of clients through recommendations from friends. As a result of its consistent outreach, open availability, and prioritization of testing, the clinic successfully identifies 20% of all HIV cases within the county, demonstrating its effectiveness in reaching and serving the community. Medical and nursing schools also rely on the STI clinic to train fellows, residents, and nursing students and enhance practical clinical knowledge of STI care across the region. The clinic also partners with OHSU and the University of Portland. It also serves as a training site for our own ICS pharmacy students, nurses, and nurse practitioners, among others.
Can I get a breakdown? I know that funds were restored in the chair's budget, but we also have some federal reductions. Can I get the detail of what funds were reduced?
Yeah.
And how that's going to impact service?
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
And I'll touch a little bit on it in the coming slides too.
And I would like the cost of the PrEP Navigator to understand how much it might be if we want to try to buy that back.
Yep,
Thank you.
absolutely.
this is just a generic request of like the things I asked for. If when we get it sent back, if it connects to, if there was a slide number that the question connected to, can we get the answer with the slide number so that, just to make all the
Maybe even a screenshot.
easy to find? Thanks.
Next slide, please. Environmental health. So again, as we're going around the circle in modernization, we completed 150 in-home investigations in regards to when the state tells us that there's an elevated lead level investigation that we need to do for a child. We respond to those. We continue to work with families to help identify and mitigate sources of lead poisoning in our children. Home visits often reveal typical sources such as tainted soil or lead paint in older homes. This past year, though, we uncovered some unusual sources of lead exposure, including an heirloom set of ceramic dishes and a child's puppet. Last month, we were notified of an infant with abnormally high lead levels in their blood. Upon reaching out to the mother, we learned that the child had been playing with a painted maraca that was purchased during a past visit to Mexico. The maraca had broken open and the baby swallowed 12 of the tiny metal beads which were inside. The beads were later identified as lead through an abdominal x-ray, as well as through testing by the mother in their home. I want to let you know that the child's doing better now with significant reductions in blood levels, and the source has been mitigated. I also want to point out, it's notable, that this program, among others, is one of the CDC's programs that have been dissolved or suspended. Next slide. Yeah, let's these things sit. This is why we spent time talking about the ecosystem up front. Communicable disease prevention. The CD team, with support from the health officer team, provides tuberculosis services in Multnomah County. And again, thank you, Commissioner Brim Edwards, for coming last night and for recognizing the team and their great work. They were also recently showcased by our partnership with the Conference of Local Health Officials for their success. We used public health modernization funds to support staff throughout the division and specifically on our communicable disease and STI teams. That investment, leveraged with county general funds and other state and federal grants, allow us to operate a TB services program. TB kills more people worldwide than any other infectious disease. Most people in the US with TB do not die from it because public health professionals track the infection closely and monitor treatment, which means either directly observing people taking several antibiotics every day for at least 6 months or watching videos of them taking the medications. In Multnomah County, our teams treated 31 individuals with active TB this 2024. You may also be familiar with the rapid response team that's taking place right now to address the Lane Middle School exposure. We've talked about that. Next slide, please. So those were the 4 foundational programs. I want to highlight one of the foundational capabilities. There's 7 of them, but this one is kind of a thread that you're seeing throughout all the presentations in talking about the health department and that really one department approach. Community epidemiology services and the tie particularly to the fentanyl state of emergency that was called in 2024 and we continue to all focus on. The overdose dashboards shown here report overdoses that we all worked to respond to. The data helps us understand if deaths are increasing or decreasing, where they were happening, and how people were getting medical help. The LPHA's unique function was to provide real-time intelligence to inform real-time strategic decisions. Just like during COVID or during a weather event, data about someone's life or the use of our healthcare resources are all about people, and often people in their most distressed moments. So while the information is critical to driving important action to protect the health of the population, public health professionals view the data with respect, recognizing that each data point represents a loved one and a member of our community.
Thank you. Next slide, please. The Health Officer Division is a small division with significant statutorily required functions. Each of our 4 programs exists due to those local statutory responsibilities that Kirsten just mentioned. Next slide. Our medical examiner's office includes our county medical examiner and deputy medical examiners who work with our medical legal death investigators to determine the cause and manner of death for people who die in our county. The ME's office works closely with our community epidemiology services team to determine the leading causes of death for our county, which inform the focus of the prevention work we do across our health department. Next slide. The Health Officer Division supports the entire public health system. And while many of our functions are most evident during unusual emergencies, we support everyday emergencies as well. We are ambassadors to the health systems through convening infectious disease physicians and infection control and prevention staff, as well as meeting regularly with their chief medical officers. Next slide. And we rely on data and community wisdom by interacting with many communities in our county through our community partnerships and capacity building liaisons on the CPCB team, and by convening hundreds of community partners and agency staff at regular fentanyl summits to discuss community perspectives and gaps in care in order to elevate those recommendations to policymakers and the health department leadership for continued support of community efforts to reduce the burden of fentanyl. Next slide.
Where we provide our services. Well, in 8 school districts in the county, 7 neighborhood hubs, actually it's 6 WIC clinics, and we're excited to be piloting a mobile WIC opportunity this fall. 8 community coalitions that are driven by where the community wants to convene and meet. Mobile services in regards to our harm reduction supports and also other outreach efforts, and in high traffic corridor areas along I-5 and 84. And through our vector control work, we kind of hit every neighborhood. And we also, because in public health, as I was saying, we support all 800,000 people who live in the county. You can argue we're everywhere. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So we're going to start getting into our strategic goals and outcomes and how they line up with our program offers. So strategies that this budget will invest in. This is around our infectious control work. So the strategies, some examples of our strategies, the communicable disease service staff will respond to reportable diseases every day. We prepare for emergent infectious disease situations such as measles or H5N1 by participating in regional preparedness activities, creating toolkits, working with our fellow neighboring counties, other states and federal partners, monitoring local data, and working on ongoing outbreaks. We will release the regional climate and health plan, and we are doing some training of traditional health workers on the connections between climate change and public health. Next slide, please.
So for our strategic goals, first of all, we'll talk about how the health officers are coordinators between public health and the medical community. Multnomah County sits at the center of an interconnected geography with many connections across our county and along the county lines of Washington County, Clackamas County, and Clark County, Washington, as well as other regional neighbors. We meet regularly to ensure coordinated responses, accurate messaging, and cross-system collaboration, especially during crises, but also in between, so that planning is insightful and consistent. Next slide.
For this, and focusing on restaurants and retail establishments, our health inspectors will be busy, just like they are every year, in conducting unannounced routine inspections among approximately 5,500 licensed facilities, such as restaurants, mobile units, pools, spas, hotels, and motels. They will do 2,000 inspections at temporary food events in schools and childcare facilities. Multnomah County also operates off of the state of Oregon's Food Sanitation Code, which is a modified version of the FDA Food Code, as well as a modified version of the Model Aquatic Health Code developed by the CDC. Health inspectors also respond to complaints at licensed facilities. They investigate reports of illness, and they conduct plans to review and ensure facilities meet the sanitation code. I want to make a note here That also, from the federal level, food safety functions within the FDA that have been cut include the labs overseeing milk and pet food safety. Next slide, please. For this goal, some of the strategies that this budget will invest in is work around the community and capacity building team, which supports and convenes our 8 culturally specific communities, which really is driven by their priorities and their goals. They engage in advocacy and education. They drive the programming that's in response to what their priorities around health, strengths, and needs are. This budget also invests in local planning efforts to conduct data analysis, has staff that supports technical assistance for communities that allows and builds understanding and knowledge for environmental risks so that they can do the planning that they want to prepare for environmental risks. And this budget also invests in the Active People Healthy Multnomah County campaign, promoting physical activity across the lifespan throughout communities in the county. Next slide, please.
Great. For this strategic goal, we want to maintain high-quality death investigations by our medical legal death investigation team in our medical examiner's office. And we're grateful to have maintained current staffing levels so that we can continue to do that statutorily required work and make sure we're doing that despite increased caseloads and case complexities, and in tandem with our partner agencies like our police and fire and ambulance providers on the scene. Next slide. We're also committed to working closely with our ambulance service provider to ensure timely and consistent ambulance response times by monitoring and publishing those on our public-facing dashboard so that the public and folks who are users of ambulance services can see how those times are trending and how those metrics are evolving over time in light of new staffing model changes and other types of innovations. Next slide. So here you'll see an example of the dashboard that shows ambulance response times over the last 6 years. And you can see that the blue bars there represent the volume of calls that are coming in month by month, and the orange lines represent the compliance percentage. And you can see the orange line is trending back up. So we're remaining optimistic that we're moving in the right direction in terms of ambulance response time compliance numbers.
Disaggregated by zone? Is that
This is total, all zones.
right? I was gonna say, when it's disaggregated by zone, are all the zones trending up?
Some zones are doing better than others. And yes, happy to go into more detail about how that's looking
You know which
since the
zone?
last time we talked. Yes,
Then
of course.
Are we tracking issues or like related to specific condition outcomes like heart attacks and some others where we had some concerns when the response time was longer? Are we seeing an improvement in outcomes in cardiac arrest?
Thanks for that question, Commissioner. I'm happy to announce that we just hired a new medical director who is helping us evaluate that data so that we can come back to you with that answer. Thank you.
Can I ask a question about the performance measures?
Sure.
I'm a little bit surprised that the 3 performance measures aren't actually that, unless I'm missing it. You could tell me if I'm missing it. I'm looking at the program offer 4004A. I'm not seeing, it looks like the 3 performance measures are perform ambulance license inspections, respond to open cause investigations, and post the contract times versus actually the measure that I would expect would be that we actually are meeting our response times. So I'm just, that would be, for me, a more meaningful measure.
Right. I hear what you're saying, Commissioner, in terms of having response times be.
You hit your mic.
Oh, sorry, apologize. In terms of having response times be part of that metric. So we take a look at response times as one proxy, one sort of metric in the sort of overall global health of our EMS system. And so for the purposes of that particular program offer, we really wanted to ensure that we were moving forward with an appropriate ambulance service plan reassessment. And as we do that, we will be looking at response times as well as many other factors that will play in And if, as the contractor who with the consultants that we've hired to do that work, recommend those plus others, we were happy to sort of bring those into the new service plan. But as we didn't want to jump the gun quite yet, if that makes sense. So to be determined, and we look forward to having those metrics be.
I'm very open to, like, the response time isn't the only thing. I mean, it's an important thing, as we know. So the other things, I realize that the move to the other staffing model wasn't made because of we're pointing to other things other than just the response time as being important. So if it's the response time and the other things, it's good. It just, these things, they don't seem to be sort of relevant to sort of they're not outcomes related to the biggest issue that is at play with the.
I mean, I would love your thoughts on this, Bruno. I think there's a difference between the outcomes that we have as the administrator of the contract and then the outcomes that we have that are part of the contract that we have with AMR and what they're supposed to be delivering on. Can you talk a little bit about that difference and what actually is included in the contract?
Well, for example, just reflecting off of that, I mean, an outcome could be, we make sure that the contractor is meeting the contract terms and the outcomes that were expected.
Right, so that's the metric that's on the slide before this one. It was about meeting that 90% compliance and response times for urban life-threatening events. And so that is part of what we are holding our ambulance service provider to as part of their contract. And yes, and so we have certain things that we are by contract and in the settlement agreement have agreed to those terms. And then there are the sort of the larger issues at play that will helpfully factor into our next ambulance service plan as that gets reassessed and revised. So yeah, it's sort of a both and at this point.
Okay.
And we'll go to the next slide. And one more.
Next slide, I think, is the last for the Public Health Division. All right. So this budget in the Public Health Division also invests in family supports that deliver evidence-based models to improve self-sufficiency, perinatal health, and early childhood health, serving families in over 20 different languages, focused on implementing the Healthy Birth Initiative to address the racial health inequities of African American maternal and infant mortality and morbidity. Also investments in implementing the WIC Community Innovation and Outreach Program to increase WIC participation through enrollment and retention of participants for the full length of their eligibility and increased redemption of benefits. Next slide, please.
For this strategic goal in the Health Officer Division is to ensure that we are sustaining a core function within our public health emergency preparedness and response program, especially in recruiting Medical Reserve Corps volunteers to provide medical attention for people during declarations of emergency. We have a public health emergency preparedness plan that's vetted and shared with Oregon Health Authority and jurisdictional colleagues. And it's also maintained and kept up to date since it interfaces consistently with our county emergency management team and our work as a county. And this often takes the form of preparedness exercises and tabletop exercises that we participate in and contribute to. Next slide.
So how this budget will deliver. The fiscal year 2026 budget is going to make it easy for a young person identified through an STI disease investigation to come into our STI clinic the same day and experience a safe, judgment-free, gender-affirming sexual health service that will keep them healthy and prevent STI and HIV transmission in the community. This budget is going to support a young mother experiencing her first pregnancy by enrolling her in WIC. She will be supported prenatally and throughout the postpartum period, in addition to supporting the nutrition needs of her first child. She'll get breastfeeding support and nutrition classes. She will get to learn about the summer-long weekend farmers markets, and she will get to use her farmer market vouchers during those farmer market days. This budget is going to allow the communicable disease team to respond to a report of a Multnomah County resident diagnosed with measles. This will include working directly with the ill person to isolate while infectious, following up with exposed contacts to recommend prophylaxis or quarantine, and facilitate the testing of symptomatic contacts. This budget is going to continue to make an investment in data collection and monitoring to provide real-time intelligence for strategic decision-making and to identify emerging substances of concern. In collaboration with the Health Officer Division and our health system partners, this budget will support implementation of the opioid prevention and response plan, focusing on life-saving opioid overdose reversal medications like naloxone and access to fentanyl test strips and wound care kits. Next slide, please.
Great. The Health Officer Division programs fill unique governmental roles across health and medical disciplines and health systems and geography through all phases of a person's life, from womb to tomb and cradle to grave. Our ME office is often stepping in at a painful time in people's lives, especially for family members and friends of folks who've died. A poignant example of this work happened recently when a college student veered off in the roadway into a tree and was killed instantly. The car was registered to his parent who lived out of state, and we immediately obtained and verified the mother's information through official means and contacted law enforcement in her area to make in-person notification. His mother contacted our office immediately, and over the next hour, we walked her through what happened and verified that he did not suffer and provided support for her and the rest of her family. I'd also like to give a quick example of the incredible work that happens in times of declared emergencies by our Medical Reserve Corps volunteers who are certified medical professionals like EMTs, paramedics, doctors, nurses, and PAs who step up in times of great need. This February, during the week-long winter weather emergency, MRC volunteers were mobilized at all 8 warming centers and provided medical attention to dozens and dozens of people in need of care. One gentleman who had been suffering with a large leg wound that was not healing due to the lack of bandages and the cold and wet clothing he wore. We were able to get him indoors for a few days and that week, and he expressed many times how grateful he was that he was able to have his wound bandage and dry clothing to protect it. Next slide.
Okay, so as we continue to build up to the details of the budget, we're going to revisit the federal landscape.
Although I have appreciated your color commentary during the presentation.
I invested so much time earlier in the presentation mapping out the federal, state, and local roles in our public health ecosystem, but it's critical to recognize the influence that the larger ecosystem has on the stability of the governmental public health system in Multnomah County. As the local public health authority, we collectively have a responsibility to protect and promote the health of every person who lives in the county. And as your public health director, it is a shared responsibility I do not take lightly. I cannot underscore enough what is at stake. Before we even started the budgeting process, we were down significant federal investments from COVID-era funding ending. This includes grants that were supporting our entire community immunization program, parts of our STI clinic that monitored disease transmission trends, and sexual health education support in high schools. These were programs we became accustomed to and will be losses felt by our community. We are committed to working with partners to find solutions, but we will not be able to provide the same level of service, and that will be difficult. In addition to the funding losses, the loss of expertise in science that has left the federal agencies is significant. Parts of agencies that get money out the door are down hundreds of staff. Leading scientists, epidemiologists, and data analysts have been released from duties. With it, their expertise and knowledge and our ability to know about diseases as quickly as possible has gone down. Entire divisions in the CDC have been eliminated. The lead program, the tobacco control program, and tobacco is still the leading cause of preventable death in the United States. Most of the injury and violence prevention program, and other programs at the federal agencies have either been eliminated or significantly reduced, such as the climate and health programs and the emergency preparedness and response infrastructure. taking with them funding, knowledge, and investments that have saved millions of lives. Messages from this administration are clear. In their opinion, states and local governments are to be responsible for much of public health and emergency preparedness. The federal government will not be the source of funding that it has been. However, new funding opportunities will be available, and we will remain curious and open to what will be possible.
Next slide, please. So in light of the challenges with direct federal support of public health and also with national polls showing that 44% of Americans are losing trust in the health recommendations of federal leaders as a result, we do have the advantage locally of strong connections with our community that help us prepare for, prevent, and respond to public health crises. Listed here are some of the principles we strive for. Public health trust is critical for this work that often happens silently by those public health heroes who help keep our air breathable, our water drinkable, and our restaurant food edible and not causing sickness. And to do that, we will continue to work on the 3 C's, strengthening our credibility by providing accurate information quickly, maintaining consistency and reliability in our responses, and fostering close confidence with the community to elevate their concerns and focus interventions where they're needed most.
Next slide, please. So some of our local challenges and our responses to them. We will see challenges in maintaining that work and the public trust. We do have a tired workforce, a smaller workforce, and in some ways a less experienced workforce, and in other ways a workforce that is looking to retire within the next 5 years, and a limited group of interested people to replace them. We are looking for opportunities for mentorship and documenting the history, legacy, and best practices. If there is a large-scale communicable disease outbreak like we had with COVID, the Public Health Division will not be able to provide all of the staff to cover that emergency. We will need help from the department, from the Office of Emergency Management, and from other staff across the county. We are exploring surge capacity support from neighboring schools of public health and nursing schools. We are planning for the COVID After Action Review and looking to implement parts of those recommendations, including a staff training on Incident Management 101. We are doing a regional tabletop on June 6th with Clackamas, Washington, and Clark counties to start practicing for the next H5N1 or whatever that might be. We are excited about the newly signed MOU with OHSU PSU School of Public Health Academic Health Department. We did that between the Multnomah County Health Department and that school, part of the one department model. We'll be able to take advantage of that to support the growing of our workforce. This MOU will create opportunities for internships where public health students can take their theory that they're learning and put it into practice in a governmental health department setting. And in reverse, it'll be an opportunity for our Public Health Division staff to participate in classes to stay up on the latest science and trends, or to even teach coursework in the day-to-day practices of governmental public health. Next slide.
Before we go to the next section, can I ask a couple of questions? So on the medical examiner program offer 40052, there's a rather lengthy narrative about the significant program changes that doesn't kind of lead to a conclusion for me. And so I'm curious, it's like, and therefore what? Are we in danger of not meeting statutory requirements because of the reduction? What is the impact of the reduction for that program offer?
I can speak to that. Thank you, Commissioner. So in the proposed budget, we did propose a tightening of the staff and cuts to the staff in that medical examiner's office. We were grateful to the chair didn't take those cuts. And so we think that now that we can continue the current FTE rate in medical examiner offices, we will be able to continue to provide the care that's needed to meet the demands of the community.
Okay, thank you. So I can just ignore this lengthy doom and gloom paragraph at the bottom of this program.
It was a little doom and gloom, and apologies for that, but I think we are really grateful to be able to continue this work. We have an amazing team of medical death investigators that does this work every single day.
Awesome, thank you. Sorry, bear with me. Lots of materials for you guys. There is, I just wanted to highlight, I know that the licensing fee increase is a part of this budget. And when we talked about fees at the board meeting outside of the budget, there was some requests that I had made around understanding the impact and doing some follow-up with the facilities themselves, with the restaurants, the owners. Is that a part of the plan, or is that something I need to be thinking about a budget note for?
So we have done some of that follow-up and have some of that information. I don't have it, that level of detail in this today, but yes, we do have that available for you and can absolutely get that for you.
Awesome, thank you.
Do you want to go?
Go ahead. Yeah,
Go ahead. Okay. I had a couple of questions, and I actually helped them. One was on our inspections work. I have been asked by community members if we could publicly post what the inspection requirements for passing are, but specifically for lodging, that people are pretty aware of what it takes to pass for their restaurant. And we're like, I passed, but I don't even know what the requirements are. So if we could publicly make that information available so that people are up to code. I'm curious about the federal cuts and if any of them are in pending litigation related to CDC or other public health funding.
Yes, so we have received termination notices from the EPA for the Environmental Justice Grant, and we have received a termination notice for the from the Department of Justice for our violence prevention work. And we are working through an appeal process for both of those, and the attorneys at the county are on it. In fact, I just got an email this morning from Robert. They're moving through those processes. There is also other legal things happening bigger than just the county, and so the state did one for the EPA, so there's lots of things happening. I am not going to pretend to be an expert because I am not an attorney and I do not even play one on television. So I would say we are very interested in giving all the other people making those moves the information that they need. And I know the appeal process, which is the agency route, is in the works. And I know Senator Merkley is also very interested because his office is asking us questions all the time.
Well, good. And then I guess my other question related to communicable diseases is how is Multnomah County doing on vaccinations? Is that an issue that we should be concerned about? And what, since 2024, what infectious diseases are we seeing at our STI clinic? I have heard concern about monkeypox, but overall, I'm just, where is that trending? And not just like, where are we at this moment, but like, what are the trends and what should we be concerned about?
Yes, we can get you that information for sure.
There was a great, I think it was in the Oregonian, it showed like, at least at the school level, like what the trend was for vaccination rates per school in the county. And that was a really interesting indicator. But yeah, getting that information.
We can get that.
Countywide would be great. Okay, and just as a time check, we have about 26 more slides. A lot of those are like number slides, but I just want to make sure.
Can I ask?
Thank
are
you.
are
Please
done,
do.
Commissioner? Okay. This is similar to the other requests on like slide 25, 27, 28, and 32 to have, what are the measurable goals? I love how it's set up and you have the goal and the strategy and then the program offer, so it all seems to link, but the overarching goal doesn't, there's no baseline. So they use things like lower the personal and community risk of infectious disease. It's like from what to what? And there's some, have a lower likelihood of exposure to health hazards, like from compared to what? But I love the way it's set up. I just need something to anchor it with and then what we're trying to achieve so I can tell whether we're making progress. I'm going back to the federal landscape. I'm curious, is the way that we would most effectively respond is it something that's budget related, or is it sort of increasing our communications? I know that sometimes has a budget component to it, but I'm curious how we think as the responsibilities are shifting locally, or we want to assume that responsibility to provide evidence-based information. How do you imagine us doing that effectively with our community?
Well, I think that's the opportunity that we're all going to have to lean in pretty hard on. I don't have an answer for that right now because I think we're in new territory. I hope the feds don't totally bail on that. I think they do still have a responsibility. What partners have shared with me at the federal level is it takes a long time to move through a budget process, and these organizational shifts that they're talking about are part of a budget process. And we have been surprised at what happens. There is, to replace the amount of federal dollars, which we'll see in the budget, I don't know how that gets replaced with local and state funds. So focusing in on what our legal obligations are is really important. And leaning on public health modernization is a really important tool because it really streamlines and makes clear, what our role is and how best to do it with efficiencies. And those are hard conversations to have. So how do we bring all of the players together to talk about health, which is complex and humans are complex. So it's going to require really strategic, multi-sector responses, particularly when we think about things like immunizations. Our role is assurance. What is the healthcare delivery role? What is the payer's role? And how do we come around that? Same with babies who are born, right? How do we come together and think about all the roles?
So this is just my own personal perspective. So I'm wondering if there are a couple places where we can sort of define that, and because I think our community is looking to us for okay, you're a trusted line of defense. So what that would look like. I mean, and then use that as an example of like, here's how we're going to respond. I'll just say, for example, and obviously I'm not deep into healthcare and knowing how, I'm sure it's very complex, but like, for example, immunizations. So there's like, maybe just, there's multiple parts, but could be the funding piece of, and then there could be like what's being communicated about whether people should get immunized. And it seems like maybe if there is funds that we can't make up, but we can be messaging and finding alternative ways to reinforce the importance of immunization. So I think the community is looking for us when statements are made like half the funding is gone, like, well, what are we doing about it? And so starting to find some tangible ways that we can, well, we're waiting for that long tail to happen, to be able to demonstrate to our community that we're not just waiting for the things to, the cuts to roll out.
Yeah. You know what, that's a perfect example, because that is what we're doing. So what we are saving is what we're responsible for, so it's the assurance piece. So how do we communicate the science of vaccines? So there are 2 staff that are still saved in this budget that will be doing just that and working on school exclusion. So our roles there, we weren't able to save all the people who have been doing the shots in the arms. So how are we going to partner then with HealthShare, with Care Oregon, with Trillium?
And I think part of the point is that's like, yes, and there's things that we can say and be communicating that are outside of those channels, but we need you to feed that to us on what those impacts are. Because just even preparing for today was like, I should have a certificate in public health.
Well, I clearly don't have one, so.
Well, I'll say that is part of the work that was mentioned yesterday in our federal response task force that we've stood up. I think another thing in your roles is Kirsten mentioned public health modernization as its framework for the work that we do in core competencies and capabilities. It's part of the legislative agenda that you all adopted. There was $25 million in the governor's budget, but as that's moving through the state legislature, I think those are the sorts of pieces that state and local funding, that state funding is more important now than it's ever been. And so you all have already supported it, but any kind of conversations, communications, obviously we'd love to help staff you all for that. And to the point kind of for the public health impacts, which are large, potentially large in the federal work, but also across the department. It's certainly noted. And understand that the communities want to, what is happening? What are you doing about it? And what can we expect? And then I'll just say too, I think there's going to be things and strategies, legal and otherwise, that we're not going to be broadcasting from the rooftops, but certainly we'll, have conversations about that with you all.
I have a question about the subject matter and our authority under being the Regional Public Health Authority. Can we set standards that are above state standards related to immunization? And I think specifically what happened during COVID, I don't think it was Multnomah County, I think it was the state who mandated that certain professions that come in contact with vulnerable individuals needed to be vaccinated, and the exceptions process was much, much more stringent than other vaccination policies. What is our authority? What is clearly the state's? And what can we do to respond to certain vulnerable populations?
Well, it will depend on what the law is you're looking at passing. So there's floor preemption, there's ceiling preemption, and it'll vary on what the conversation is. It's the same thing at the federal level, like on what states can do.
So I guess I'm just going to put a fine point on, because I think when we talk about public health modernization, that's when people think they need the masters in public health. But when we talk about vaccines and kind of what we're, like the example you used, I feel is something that we should try and package up and start communicating, because I do think people want us to be doing something, and we are doing something, but it needs to be explained to people in a way that's relatable. I mean, I found, for example, last night's presentation, it was like, there's Multnomah County, no matter what's happening at the federal level, showing up with information, answering questions, like doing the work of public health. And so somehow like capturing that because people are going to still want and expect us to do that. And I think when they hear about everything that's coming down from the federal government, it's like, oh no, like, is nothing happening? It's like, no, things are happening, but it has to be put in a way that I think people can actually wrap their arms around and understand.
Thank you so much. We don't like the word modernization, really. It's kind of like, people think we're talking about computers or IT, and I noted. We're going to tell really good stories. That's what we're going to keep working on doing.
I mean, people want us to be taking action, so I think, and I think you all are perfectly positioned to provide a tangible evidence of what we're doing in this community in response that's protecting the public health in our community.
Thank you. All right, the numbers. Woohoo. Okay, next slide.
We just have to have some like stamina.
We are losing a lot of money and staff, and this is, again, a reduction of a blend of federal losses. Before we even had any conversations about losing money, these were COVID-era ARPA funds that we really started off with in a deficit. Next slide.
Is that, how much of the decrease is from losing ARPA funds?
About 5 million. We started off with about 5 million deficit. This is the decision-making process that we kind of use, similar to what you're hearing in other presentations, so I'll go to the next slide. I wanted to talk through an equity approach, and this is a story about how we kind of did this. I want to preface this slide with an important comment. These numbers represent infants born, taken home from the hospital, loved by families and friends, whose futures will never be known, the grief unimaginable. Each data point represents a baby. Having data on poor birth outcomes like low birth weight, preterm birth, and infant mortality helps us understand the health of our community and a plan for public health needs. While infant mortality for the population has declined over the past 10 years, significant inequities persist with non-Hispanic Black families experiencing higher infant mortality and low birth weight than other communities. Racial inequities like this arise from social and structural barriers to health, including racism, intergenerational trauma, and colonization, in addition to discrimination within the healthcare system, which can affect health on a daily basis. Using this data and culturally relevant and science-based programming, we made a difficult and strategic budget decision. Next slide, please. To prioritize keeping direct services focused on communities most impacted by health inequities, we prioritized continued investments in the Healthy Birth Initiative. This model focuses on the needs of pregnant Black, African American, and refugee women. It does this by opening up access to health care and providing ongoing support to pregnant Black and African American women and their families before and after birth. Some examples of supports provided through HBI include prenatal classes, childbirth education, postpartum and newborn classes, fatherhood support, and nurse home visiting. Next slide, please. I just want to point out on this slide that we are slightly more funded with federal and state dollars. I also want to point out on this slide that since our budget was created, we've received the 2 notifications of termination. So we will be coming back with some amendments. Next slide, please. This is how our federal funding is currently broken out. 20% of our public health division is funded with federal dollars. 43% of WIC is funded with federal dollars. 30% of prevention and health promotion, 20% of our HIV dollars, STD, and 15% of early childhood. But it's across all of our program areas. So nothing is untouched. Next slide, please. Just another view, really want to call out the decline in staff. Although part of this, while our numbers do go down from even below what our pre-COVID numbers were, some of this is an organizational shift. So not so much losing capacity, but just that our community partnership and capacity building team is going to be at the department level. So we'll still have that support and infrastructure, that it will just not be housed in the public health division. So ultimately, our numbers are where they were at pre-COVID. It is significant though, so we'll feel it. Next slide, please. This just really reflects where our staff are at relative to where our budget is located. Next slide. Next slide. Our reductions. On this slide, I just want to call attention to the communicable disease immunization program. And again, this is ARPA ended, COVID era ending resources. We will be keeping 2 staff that are required for us to keep our statutory responsibility, our unique governmental role, which will be educating folks about the importance of vaccines and also following through on our school exemption work and working with health systems and other partners throughout the community, schools, etc. Next slide, please. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Oh, go back to that slide. Nope. I'm sorry. Go forward. Okay. Gas-powered leaf blower. I do want to call this out. And just note that while we'll no longer have staff providing the support that we had originally provided, we do look forward to supporting the Office of Sustainability's recommendations to phase out the use of gas leaf blowers, specifically the development of their educational website and easy access to educational materials for lawn care businesses. We will be partnering with developing those materials with them. I also want to call out here the community epidemiology, that unit and the decrease in those reductions. Those were planned reductions. That was in the CDC's Health Disparities Grant. We planned to end that grant this fiscal year. So while that was one of those grants that was terminated early, we had projects that were ready to end. We did not fill all of those positions, though while we did lose some of those positions this year, a lot of that work was done through contracts. So that was a planned conclusion of that body of work. And then wanted to call out also the reduction in the harm reduction resources there. This is a result of the 82nd Exchange site. That was, we lost the closure of that site, and so this is some reduction in supplies, and the community health specialist that was vacant, was not hired as a loss of that Exchange site. So we're still assessing how people are getting supports, brick and mortar supports in that area, and we'll be kind of tracking and seeing what supports will be needed in that area. Next slide. Of note here, just want to call out the Public Health Office of the Director and the reductions there. It is notable that we are going to be losing some project manager support, some administrative support, and some fiscal support. We will be leaning on our department central fiscal support staff and some other central services, and recognizing that it will be all hands on deck as we continue to do our work moving forward. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Just again, reiterating what it looks like in the COVID funding that we lost from the beginning. So to your question earlier, Commissioner Brim Edwards, we lost at the beginning about $5 million and 13 staff, or 13 FTE. Next slide, please. So most notably, the reduction impacts the Nurse Family Partnership Program, which is one less home visiting curriculum that's available in Multnomah County. We did pause referrals in February after the transmittal letter was released, which meant fewer families would be impacted as a result. Families will continue to have breastfeeding and nutrition support through WIC, which is Multnomah County's largest footprint for parent and child support. Next slide, please.
I have a couple of questions
Yes,
on this
please.
one. I'm a little troubled because we also are saying we think that WIC will be cut, and that's what we're referencing as being able to support these households. But the FY '25 adopted budget for this program says, quote, funding provided in this budget will maintain the nurse-family partnership while parent-child family health considers a possible restructuring of home visiting programs. What is the update here? It was too much for me to try and figure out if any of this landed in the other program offers. And so I'm trying to understand what body of work, because this was a potential cut last year. Can you help me make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And let me say, I'm hopeful that WIC doesn't get cut. It's not one of the programs that's being talked about that way. It is just notable that it has a significant federal input, or like, they give us a lot of money. It's not being talked about that way. We actually have a new grant that we've just gotten that's helping us think about how we keep the people through their eligibility. So I'm very hopeful about WIC, which is why we feel like it's a big footprint. Something to know about Nurse Family Partnership is that it's kind of a curriculum that's embedded in something like the Healthy Birth Initiative. And then Babies First is like another kind of tool that's a nurse visiting program that can be used to go out nested under the Healthy Birth Initiative. There's programs that use nurses and programs that use community health workers. So when we think about these decisions that we're making, some of it is about how the programs operate. So Nurse Family Partnership was something that was originally for the first, you could only use it if you had one baby, the first baby. You couldn't use it for second or third babies. Whereas other programs, you could use it for second or third babies. Nurse Family Partnership is now nationally trying to do it so you can maybe do it for other babies. But some of these decisions weren't made yet before this. And down in Salem, they have a bill to try to get match, which hasn't been made yet. So these investments to pull in some of these things just haven't lined up to decisions that we've needed to make around the general fund investments in some of these things as well. So I think that's also part of it. It's like, where do we try to put the general fund investments to help make our home visiting programs go as far as possible, knowing that community health workers are a really important investment, nurses are an important investment, but where do they get their biggest reach? We also know that HBI referrals bring in more referrals and continues to exceed in their revenue that Nurse Family Partnership has not been able to do. So those are some of the things behind some of the decisions that we have been trying to make.
I'm still not sure that I understand if the work of this, because there was staff involved as well in the Nurse Family Partnership, correct?
I'm sorry.
There was staff included in, like, the reduction means a reduction in staff as well.
Nurses, yeah.
So
Yes.
I want to understand, what was the state of this body of work last year, numbers served, demographics of the population served, and number of FTE? And what is the state of that same body of programs in the chair's proposed budget?
Yeah, we can get that.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
absolutely. We do have that. Yes.
So you want to see how
We have.
it's proposed to be spread out through other programs, like the to take on like
Yeah.
services that we're, okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
because all the POs reference each other, but again, it's, if you're not in the work, it was like, all right, I'm just going to ask because I can't figure it out.
Yes, yes, yes. I will offer that what we did learn on Monday in trying to keep a possible hook into the nurse-family partnership opportunity if money falls from the sky, we did explore what it meant to keep a certification, because usually there had to be a certain number of nurses. But we have 2 nurses in our Healthy Birth Initiative program. What the opportunity would be to keep a certification so that those 2 can stay certified. We are able to do that for a small amount of money, which allows them to continue to use the curriculum as part of that model, that evidence-based model. So it keeps us connected if resources become available to do that upfront investment. That's the hard part, right?
Can you also send me what the cost of that is to keep those 2 certified so that as we watch what plays out in Salem, and if there are funds that we could actually leverage back into this, that I'm aware, I can just think
It's
about that.
$60,000 to
I'm not going to remember, so
We'll
send
send it to you.
Yeah, thank you. If you can just send it when you send me this kind of narrative, that would be great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, next. And then the reduction in the vector supplies, what we wanted to call out here is the risk that based on weather, if we have a bad season and we have a lot of mosquitoes, we don't have a lot of supplies. So we might be needing to ask for support and resources. Next slide.
So that would just come in the form of just a
Contingency
your budget.
request or something.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Next slide, we'll talk through the numbers for the Health Officer Division. And by the numbers, this is the Health Officer Division from a very high level. So we'll go to the next slide and look at some of the details. During a year of reductions, you will see an increase primarily driven by our work in the emergency medical services. This increase in FTE is here because of the personnel required to do the EMS system assessment and being included in that was included in the count for FY26, and they were included in the temporary staffing budget for FY25. So that's why it looks like an increase here. Next slide. Roughly a third of our funding falls into 3 more detailed revenue groupings. The EMS fee is based on general funds paid primarily by the EMS franchisee. About a third of our county general funds, and the remaining third are contracts and grants, with the majority being HealthShare Oregon for the Tri-County 911 program within our EMS program. Next slide, please. Our year-over-year trends show investments made in our core services over the years, and primarily increases in medical examiner capacity to bring that service up to the level needed to meet community demand. And next slide. This slide details our operating budget by expense category, with the majority being an investment in people, as well as internal county services to support those people. Next slide.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm not sure which slide to ask this on.
Yeah.
But there were, I want to say millions of dollars of fines for AMR that were assessed but not collected because apparently the agreement allows them to work them down. If they were to, excuse me, if they were to, and I know there was also some allocation of how they might be spent, if they were to be paid, or some of them would pay, they show up.
Yeah, those would go in that pie on the previous slide. One more back, please. It would be in that kind of light blue lower left quadrant there with the fee-based, county-based general funds. Okay. Yeah, that's where those funds would go. And we'll skip ahead now to slide 62, I believe. Yeah, our division did take several reductions, and And the next slide will help show kind of what the impact those will have. So we'll go to slide 63. So the largest impact will be worsening risks related to capacity. Should we see a disaster or an unplanned emergency, or more federal reductions in funding the work that the federal or state governments support. And next slide. Okay.
Curious.
Yeah.
What does that look like, local physicians consulting with the health officer?
Right, so that is Dr. Everson's and my capacity to do the work, to be able to provide the expert consultations, the advice, and the convening that we do with our external partners in the health systems. So a reduction basically would look like riskier, it'd be riskier to be able to provide those services for people because we wouldn't have the capacity to do so. At the moment, we have the reductions that you saw on the previous slide are mostly related to materials and supplies and not FTE.
And then can you tell me which program offer that second bullet is referring to? And it's okay if it's...
Yeah, the Tri-County 911, that is the end of the EMS program.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And so speaking of state support, I'll hand back the mic to Kirsten for one last time to walk us through some of the state bills.
Next slide, please. Next slide. So I'll just reiterate what Director Banks said earlier. For public health modernization, one of the most important roles that you all can play is down in Salem, and just reiterating the importance that them investing in those resources that then would come to us, it's pretty important. And you can take our stories, we will prep you for that, and you can take our stories and go down there. That would be wonderful. Next slide, please.
Sorry, just before we do this. So does that mean that this ask isn't baked into any of the numbers?
No, yeah.
So if we got it, it would be an ad.
If we got this, this would be super.
I love the enthusiasm here. I just want to note that in the in the governor's recommended budget, instead of 25 million,
It's 2
it was
million.
2 million.
Yeah.
So,
It would be not anything for us.
Yes.
yeah, that doesn't help us.
Nope,
25
it
million
sure
helps us.
doesn't.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, because when I worked at the, when I worked at the state, that was what I helped draft in that budget. Next slide, please.
Did you put the 2 million in?
I did that, now I'm here, isn't it? Yep. Here we
You
go.
didn't do your future self any favors.
I sure didn't. And what I just want to call out here is, again, tobacco leading cause of death and disability in this country, in this state, and still in this county. The state is considering Senate Bill 702. It has been amended with some adjustments. I want to assure you all that it does not impact the amazing policy work that that this commission passed. And so it's still, while it was contested, we are still awaiting the final judgment. We do know the opinion is that it stands, but what happens down in Salem will not impact what is going to happen here.
And I think I was just in Salem on Monday, and I believe Senator Reynolds had an informational hearing that day, and I think there is a public hearing scheduled for this week for this. So that might have been like new info since the slides were made.
Cool. Thank you. That is, I think, the last slide.
Thank you so much for Health Department marathon sessions. We really appreciate all the work that you do and bringing the information for us. There are a lot of questions that were asked along the way. So I want to just see if anyone has any last questions they want to get on the record for follow-up. We do plan to have Health Department come back to help answer some of these.
Not a question. I just want to, because we mostly just pepper you with questions, I just wanted to take a minute to appreciate the work that I see where you really tried to offset impacts of federal reductions with rethinking how programs function and work together and group together, as well as offsetting with general fund. So I just wanted to appreciate the work that I saw go into this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually had a couple of things. One, when you're putting together some of the answers to questions around the STI clinic, could you also provide numbers, if you haven't, on the folks who are coming to the STI clinic from outside Multnomah County? I think that's important information since we're the only one in the state. And then just goes back to behavioral health. I really would like to see some of those, the numbers that they shared around by race to include ethnicity for the Latina population, if you can provide that for all of those slides that were there. All right. Thank you. Oh, please, Commissioner Berman.
Yeah, it just kind of came up in the last slide. I think I asked all my other ones beforehand. But it was about flavored tobacco, and you said this tied to the leading cause of death in the county. So is that then tying to this slide? So one thing, just as part of my being a continuous learner, it would be useful because it just says cancer and is like, okay, what kind of cancer is that? So to get maybe a click down, so because then it more strongly connects to the things we do here are impacting this. I don't know if we have that somewhere. I don't want a bunch of work created, but it would just be helpful because then as we're going through the investments we're making or the things that we do to be able to see like this is what we're targeting up here, because that makes this way more compelling.
Yeah.
Not that it's not compelling on its own, but does that make sense?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you want a breakdown of like the different cancers? I mean, so like lung, breast, and prostate being the top 3 cancers.
When I would actually say with tobacco, it's cancer, it's stroke, there's multiple ones in there, so I think we can go up from tobacco of where that ties to those, COVID, I mean, it makes all of those factors into many of the leading.
Like I say, don't create anything new, but if you have just more
we have
detail, because like I say,
in our orientation.
I think creates a more compelling narrative or like call for action.
Yeah. The human body that would actually.
I have a related question, and this is not urgent. I don't know if you have any public health data related to, that is similar to tobacco when it comes to like the more you increase the price, the less young people use. Is there any data related to marijuana? And if so, can you pass that on? Thank you.
Yes.
Before we adjourn.
Certainly with alcohol as well.
Can, yeah.
Okay. Great. So thank you so much, Public Health. Thank you, Behavioral Health, for earlier. We are done with the presentation part, and so I'll open it up. I think Commissioner Berman Edwards has an amendment.
So this is an amendment I'm offering on behalf of myself and Commissioner Moyer. It's relating to loan fur. So then I'm just going to read it, and then I'll distribute copies. So in 1928, Multnomah County assumed ownership of Lone Fir Cemetery and halted the burial and cultural practices of Chinese Americans on Block 14 on Lone Fir Cemetery. In the ensuing 20 years, Multnomah County would have the Chinese American community disinter hundreds of remains, and then the county disinterred the remains of hundreds of Chinese Americans using a bulldozer to repurpose Block 14 later into a parking lot. The county failed to identify and account for the individuals who were disinterred and to account for damaged and or destroyed culturally significant historical artifacts. In 2005, the county signed a MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, intergovernmental agreement with Metro committing to the development of a memorial. It is 2 decades later, and the county has yet to take meaningful action to build a memorial and repair the harm the county has caused the Chinese American community. The proposal for $1 million in the chair's budget is a solid start towards the $2.5 million for the capital cost of constructing the memorial. And I also note there's an apology included as well. Multnomah County's values include accountability, social justice, inclusivity, leading with race, equity and inclusion, and safety and well-being. To action the county's values, Commissioner Moyer and I propose an amendment to add $500,000 to the capital stack for the Lone Fir Memorial, offset by $500,000 in one-time general fund from fiscal year 2026, contingency earmarked for public campaign finance.
All right, thank you. Any other amendments at this time? Okay, we'll see everybody at 1:30 PM for our next budget work session.
Yeah, I would like to add. Oh, I'm sorry. Just to not, no, that's okay. Just to be clear that this is the first loan for a related amendment, and we will be searching for opportunities, hopefully, to get to the full ask.
Thank you. We are adjourned.